My duder, what is up?
Not much. What's up and what dire circumstances have led to me being selected as a moderator?
Just trying to find an unbiased party to deal with some beef that Joe Lewis and I had. So
yeah, I'm known for being unbiased. No, in all seriousness, I like both of you. So if there's any dispute, I'm happy to attempt to moderate. Yeah, this is happening right now?
Yeah, it should. Waiting for Joe. Come on, Joe. Vosh is here. Let's go, Joe. Let's go, Joe.
I'm glad the energy is high.
Oh, dude, I'm feeling really good. He talked a ton of shit today, and then he said he wouldn't talk to me. And then he begged to bring on a mod of his choosing. Wouldn't accept anybody that I recommended. He said no. He said no, chat. What are we supposed to do? Oh God. Prime, Fanatic, and Burns. Wow. Oh God. I knew it as well.
Do I not work?
I don't like gang, like you get like Vosh is like best, like is good buds with Demon Mama. Like, what the fuck? Like,
is this about Demon Mama? I haven't seen the Demon Mama discussion yet, so.
Oh, you absolutely should. It's probably my best debate I've ever had, legitimately. Like, straight fucking banger.
Well, if you're looking for impartiality, then the fact that I haven't actually seen that debate might be helpful.
I think that's even better, because like, dude, literally everyone else has seen it. Everyone else has reviewed it already.
Nah, I'm slow on the uptake. Sorry, I've been playing a lot of video games lately.
No, it's okay. Like, you took the video games. I took the I took the politics. I'm the one that's burning things down. Yeah, Joe. All right, fine. You know what? Prime can come on too. We can have two moderators. Two moderators. All right. Sure, Joe. You get Prime, and we'll have Vosh. All right. Joe, bring on Prime. You and Prime and Vosh. We have double mods. Double mods, baby. Get in Discord, buddy. You and Vosh are modding. Sorry for like taking away from your game. I hope you can still focus on it.
You actually got it the best possible time. We'd finished all the story content, and we've even 100%ed everything in-game. Right now, I'm 100%ing it in the Steam achievements. It should only take a few more minutes, and after that, we're playing Super Mario Sunshine, which is also not a narrative game. So, as good a time as any to moderate a debate.
So true. All right. Oh God, I know. Like, let's go. Come on. We're like. I messaged him. Prime, where you at? Prime! Prime! Where are we going? Prime!
So how's your day been?
Dude, I've had a banger fucking day. Like, dude, I've had my most, like, my videos popping off. I think it's like over 4,000 views at this point. Like, it's really cool. I've gotten, like, a good amount of, like, follows and stuff. Like, and, like, obviously, like, I'm beating, like, virtually everyone I follow on Twitch right now. So it's, like, pretty progress. It's a good day. Oh, I see him. All right. There's Prime. Hey, Prime. How you doing, buddy?
Hey.
All right, you ready? You ready for this?
I am not ready. I don't know what's going on.
Two unbiased mods. Both of them don't know what's going on. Joe, ball is in your court, bitch. Get in the fucking Discord.
Oh my God.
Let's go, Joe. Blood for the blood god. I'm ready.
I'm not even dressed.
I think we're audience to a very high-level discussion with a lot of context I'm not privy to, but...
Don't worry, we don't need context. I just want to ask Joe about how I am a raging sexist and why he was white knighting Cherry, then why he was talking all this good shit, and then why he's been waiting and hiding behind mods and having a therapy session with Riverboat Jack after I blew her out tonight. Like, I'm just waiting for Joe Lewis. Where's he at?
Wow, this is a lot of... Wait, Wait, I like Riverboat Jack. How many
like
people are you tearing through?
Right now, in terms of content creators, Demon Mama, Riverboat Jack, and then Joe Lewis. Joe Lewis has kind of inserted himself, and then I had a debate earlier with Riverboat Jack, and it was really bad for her. I really enjoyed it, and now it's Joe Lewis's turn. So just the three. I'm not trying to burn bridges, you know. I'm not the one who during the debate said that I lost friendship marks because I was bad faith. But Joe, where are you at, buddy? We're
I'm
waiting.
DMing him now. I'm DMing him now.
Come on, Joe.
And
Come on,
he's
Joe.
trying to
Oh man,
respond.
I'm having so much fun. This is gonna be
Make sure,
banger.
let's make sure our humors are balanced so that we're approaching this conversation in the spirit of good faith debate. You know, as best as we can. We have to activate our chakras. I believe that it's going to be productive discussion.
I think so too.
Same here. I mean, as soon as I figure out what the fuck we're doing, then I'm sure it'll be amazing. The only thing I got was that it was something on the mandated schooling or something, right? So if you guys can, when you two get together, he just got back to me. Hold on, I'll get him in here. 1 second.
Yep. I promise, despite this being my Discord, I will not mute anyone during this discussion. If I do, you can count it as me completely conceding defeat.
Okay.
So have no fear, Joe. You are amongst friends. I will not hit you with the mute button. Oh, my mirth is making me seem manic. I'm too happy. That's my problem.
Yeah.
Oof, so true. Where are we at, Joe?
I tried to send him an invite. That didn't work. Hold on, let me
tell him to get in the waiting room because I know he's in my Discord. Send him an invite to the Discord. Tell him to get in the waiting room, and then we can pull him in.
Yeah. Application settings. Hey, could you DM me an invite because I tried to send him an invite. I didn't automatically generate one. I don't think you allow people to do that. Send me an invite.
Yeah, 1 second.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, he said he's getting his links sorted, so maybe he is good.
Okay.
All right.
Let's see. Where's he
So
at?
I think it seems like a lot of this disagreement is going to center on context that I imagine many people listening, including my audience, might not be privy to. So for that reason, I'm going to try to make an active effort to make sure that any claims made, which are based on tweets or anything not included within the discussion, are fully contextualized. I don't want to feel like I'm missing any of the deets.
Yeah, same here. I guess I'm gonna start my stream.
Sure, go for it.
So if you, I'm gonna mute myself a bit. I want you, me, and okay. 1 second. We might have an issue. I'm DMing Joe.
No worries. I'm gonna go grab some water really quick. I'll be right back.
So does anyone in my chat know what Hanz talked with Riverboat Jack about? I know Riverboat Jack isn't like quick to be sensitive. I've talked with her before.
Hey Vosh.
Howdy.
So Joe, first of all, hello, hi. I hope you're doing well.
Video games.
Joe Lewis has said no Vosh.
Well, I'm a little offended by that. I suppose we'll see. I am but a moderator. I suppose we'll see how Hanz responds.
Yeah.
When he returns. Though I have to say, the last time I spoke with Joe Lewis, I was under the impression him and I were on good terms. I'm not entirely
What's happening?
sure.
Yeah. So
What did he?
I'm moving about my room, but
Wait, what's going on? What's going on, guys?
Joe Lewis said no Vosh. He said.
What if we
you
bring?
and
Oh, what? That? Oh my God! Like Joe Lewis. I'm gonna be completely real with you, dude. You're a fucking pussy. Like, you literally wouldn't talk to me without a mod of your choosing, and I made it fair, and we each have one mod. I promised not to mute you, and that if I did, I would claim complete failure and destruction, and I'll be on my hands and knees and apologize. But you can't do that. You want to make sure this is a safe space, that you feel like it's stacked in your favor, and that's fucking weak as shit. Hey, what if we, Prime, so, ask Joe. Joe, what if we brought in Wicked Supreme as well? 3 mods, a trio of mods to protect you. 3 whole men to keep me from you.
Well,
because it seems like right now you're fucking horrified of me.
I'm only interested in facilitating good faith discourse. I don't know why Joe Lewis would be under the impression that I would be like biased or favorable. The last time I spoke with Joe, we were on good terms, and you just came back from arguing with 2 people I'm friends with. So I don't know
Right.
why Joe Lewis would be under the impression that I'm coming in here to bolster your perspective, necessarily, but if he does come in here, I will just try to figure out whose arguments are the best as I can.
I got you. If we want, we can bring in Xander Hall too. Although we gotta say now, because we're gonna have like 4 to 5 mods for this, like the mods gotta promise to like only step in when absolutely necessary. Because like at this point, it's getting kind of crowded in here.
It'd be great if the mods ended up fighting.
Just assemble a jury, 12 people, 12 of our peers.
Oh god. Oh yeah, 1 second. Let's bring in Wicked Supreme too, Joe.
So okay. I said bringing a third. He doesn't want to do that. He says
What? Oh
that
my god, Joe! I am bending over backwards for you. Like,
he says you think it's more appropriate if it was just you two and a singular moderator. And if that singular moderator doesn't have to be me. So I just let me make that clear. I don't know anything about this. It's not like I'm biased to one side of this or another. I don't care.
that's totally okay, Brian. Yeah, fine. Joe, fine. I'll make a counter proposal, buddy. We can have 1 mod, but it's Vosh. Buddy, I'm literally giving you everything, but letting you pick the sole mod. That's all I'm asking, and you can't do it. You can't do it. Oh my god, the weakness.
Oh my god. All right, so give me a second, Hans. I'm gonna deafen you because you're gonna distract me when I'm doing this. 1 second.
No worries. No worries. Man, like.
Playing video games.
Nope, Vosh, this is not your fault. I promise not to cancel you by association. I don't want to burn any bridges tonight. I just want to have a good faith conversation with my friend Joe Lewis, who I had a very productive conversation with about like black advocacy and decolonialism. That was actually supposed to be dropping this week. It was a very cordial conversation. I think
Would
it
you
was
be
like
offended if I said I don't entirely believe you when you say you don't want to burn any bridges?
In fact, I'm gonna go call Joe. So I'm gonna leave this call. I'm gonna call Joe directly and talk to him and be faster. All right, I'll be back.
I got you. Vosh, so it's me saying I don't want to burn any bridges is entirely different than me saying I am willing to burn bridges.
Yeah, it's not that you want to burn bridges, it's that you want to very aggressively defend your perspective on these issues. And if that involves the acquisition of torches and gasoline, then, you know?
Metaphorically, absolutely.
Right. Yeah, okay, well, Lord knows I've been there. Yeah. Well, if it ends up that Joe is just utterly unwilling to have me on as a mod, then I mean, I'll just leave. You can find another person. Though I'll admit that at this point I'm fairly invested. You know, I want to.
I know. Yeah, we can bring in Zerka too. Make it a full fucking meme. Oh my god. Come on, Joe. All right, wait, Vosh. For the context, right? Because like I want to substantiate all my claims. Would you like to listen to the tweet thread that started this conversation as to why I want to have a conversation with Joe Lewis so badly?
Link it to me. I'll
right.
look over it on my stream.
So, yeah. So
I think I might have seen a piece of it. I think somebody DM'd me a tidbit of it.
Yeah.
With Joe
So
Lewis,
there's yeah. So here's the initial one. You'll have to scroll through the quote tweets for like most of his thing. But there's like it's like a fringe of about like 8 different quote tweets. Like I quote tweet him, then he quotes me to me. So just keep following until the end of the line. So,
okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. From Joe Lewis. On to Harkir, I strongly recommend you read up on education further. That was really painful to sit through. There are really easier ways to burn bridges with Demon Mama. So this is, of course, in reference to the debate with Demon Mama, which I haven't seen. But okay.
Joe is in general.
He's here. He's gonna come. Oh, this is amazing.
And
all right,
Hanz
I'm so excited.
responds. Are your critiques about the ways of improving education?
Hello.
Oh.
Howdy.
My friend.
Okay.
All right. So
Let's go. We can do this without mods.
Really?
Yes.
I thought you wanted to. I thought you.
I'm saying now we can do this without mods. Is that a problem, or do you want to have Prime and Vosh still here?
I mean, you have to keep like changing it. So like, I guess I'm kind of concerned. But Vosh and Prime are invested now.
I'm asking you.
You literally asked them.
I'm asking you to have this without mods. If you'd like to have that with mods or without, that's fine. Ball's in your court.
Okay. Excellent power move. I'm totally okay with keeping them, and you're okay with keeping them as well.
Sure.
Excellent.
That's good.
I love it. All right, so I would like to ask with a question. Why
I think
did you call
we should.
me sexist? Why did you call
we
me?
should.
Joe, I'm just curious. So you said, and I'm quoting you from your quote tweet. You said you are developing a body count. It's Cherry and now Demon Mama. This is looking incredibly anti-fem. You better fucking check yourself. Take a couple days off to self-reflect. What did you mean by that?
So before you do that, before you two go into this, Vosh and myself, right? I think we're missing context for a lot of this. Correct, Vosh?
Yeah, so I've read through the Twitter thread, and as I understand it, and just to make sure that we're being clear on this, the criticism here is Hanz had a discussion with Demon Mama, which I haven't seen, but I know was contentious, judging from the internet fallout. And afterwards, Joe Lewis criticized Hans's performance and mannerisms in that, leading to this tweet. You're developing a body count, it's Cherry, and now Demon Mama. This is looking incredibly anti-fem. You better fucking check yourself. Take a couple days off to self-reflect, which spawned a whole bunch of discourse. So, as I understand it...
So I think it's important for everyone in the conversation, in this discourse, and people watching to have the full conversation. So is everyone okay with me reading the tweet thread from the beginning?
I don't understand why you feel that's appropriate.
I think it's extremely appropriate and necessary. So let's get started. The first tweet from Joe Lewis. Hanz of Harkir, I strongly recommend you read upon education further. This is really painful to sit through. There are easier ways to burn bridges with Demon Mama. Which I responded, are your critiques about my ways of improving education, and I won't build any commentary, I'm just going to read, right? Are your critiques about my ways of improving education? All ears, would love to know more. Or are you also for the abolishment of mandatory education, in which case you're wrong? And I'm not the one who said the debate was a mark on our friendship. To which you responded, you are developing a body count. It's Cherry and now Demon Mama. This is looking incredibly anti-fem. You better check yourself. Take a couple days off to reflect. So, my quote tweet from that, and again, if we want to add more context, Cherry herself said not to use her to attack me, and we can read that tweet as well. Let me find.
I think it's important. I think it's
let
important
me read
here.
my quote tweet.
Wait, hold on, really quick.
Hold on,
wait,
hang on,
Hanz,
Hanz.
we'll explore it fully, but yeah, Joe Lewis, take a second to explain your perspective.
Yes. So there's another tweet that you're missing here, because if we're being clear here, you responded. I'm just going to read it verbatim, right? Dude, thanks. The baseless accusation of sexism without answering any of my questions. Sherry and I are cool. This is a nothing burger, which
Absolutely.
I replied with.
Oh, so we're switching off. Okay, yeah. Okay,
No. Again, this is what people would see if they were to go onto my page right now to see the comment thread. So if you were looking at my content, these are the things that you would see in between the exchanges for you and I, which I think is a bit more important than the thread, because this is the first thing that people see. Is that a decent representation of that?
No, because I'm reading the entire thread from like start to finish. I think that's like full context. I would also add like the tweet from Sherry.
Am I not making sense here?
Help me
understand why I lost you. Help me understand why I lost you.
You said you want to provide context, but you don't want to read it front to back and provide Cherry's tweet for context. Because so you don't want to read it front to back. So you want less context.
That's not what I'm trying to say here. We should have full context. We should have full context here and how we got here. What I'm saying here is that when you go on my Twitter page, which I'll source right now, you won't see the interactions between this inner thread. This is something that we ought to explore, and I'm agreeing with you here. However, there's more exchanges that you and I are beyond those two threads, and you recognize that, right?
I could read all of our DMs from today if you would like to read them as well. I am absolutely happy.
Hold on.
Talking about DMs.
If I may, so while context is important, I think we should probably start from statements and suppositions, and then like go into the context as it's immediately relevant, because there's always a million things to read. So let's state, I guess, positions so that everything's kind of orienting around that core. So Hanz, as I understand it, your position is you feel it was a mischaracterization of your behavior to insinuate that you have a problem debating fem people, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I feel like the reading of Joe's tweet absolutely implies that I am anti-fem. He said that it implies anti-fem. So I assume that would also imply that I'm kind of acting sexist.
Gotcha.
So I would like to ask Joe. I would like to ask Joe if he thinks I'm sexist.
And
No.
Joe, and you can
The
answer that.
The answer is no. The answer is no.
Okay, gotcha.
That's great.
So what is your position then? You've said that you don't think that your thoughts on this are summed in totality in that like one tweet. Like what's your position? If you were to argue just on the matters at hand here, what would your position be with regards to Hanz of Hakir's behavior?
Sure. So we're going to pull back a little bit to come forward. One of the frustrations that I have when people navigate in this space is that sometimes they might not have the full context and full information about the very thing that they're talking about. So when the conversation about compulsory education exists, I understand that that doesn't exist, and that is more of a morality argument. But the first response that people have is like, wait a minute, compulsory education exists. Like, what about being required to go to school and stuff like that? That's a different conversation all in of itself that has multiple Supreme Court precedents, that has multiple school board and district guidelines that vary from state to state, and different things around chronic absenteeism, truancy, and class attendance. So when I was watching that conversation, which I watched in its totality, the very situation, because Eagle Eye Valor mentioned to watch it from the YouTube video, so I did that. I was frustrated because the actual issue I felt never was efficiently addressed, and I didn't necessarily believe that Hanz was actually in full, I don't want to say full representation, that might not be the best way of describing it, but I didn't necessarily believe what he was saying when he was saying it. Because I felt that like if he was given like a little bit more context on how these things work, then he might have a better perspective on this that's a bit more attached to what happens on the ground in education.
If I knew more. Okay. All right, so let me make sure that I have,
the reason,
how many points do you have? I'm just writing them. I just want to make sure that I get them all down. So you have more? Okay, I'll keep going.
No, it's fine. We can stay there from now if you're.
No. Like, I want you to finish like your thing before, like, because we can.
No, it's fine. We can start with there first. Let's start with there first because that was a lot.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so you said that I do not have the full context.
Yes.
I can absolutely agree with you. I am not an education expert. I think that's a very fair point to make, which is why I specifically asked, in regards to improving education, what your suggestions were.
Improving education and the conversation about compelled education are two separate things. You recognize that, correct?
Absolutely. And I said this in my argument with Demon Mama. I said this during my stream, where there's two arguments that are being made. That one, whether we should improve education, which you and I and Demon Mama and Riverboat Jack all agree on. And the second one, should we mandate education? Those are two separate questions. We agree on the first one, and I disagreed with Demon Mama and Riverboat Jack on the second one. I still don't know where you lie on that spectrum, so I would probably ask right now where you fall on that.
Sure. I think mostly in the United States, we can do away with compelled education laws because I believe that school boards and school districts can do a better job at creating policies, practices, and procedures around absenteeism, truancy, and class attendance. However, I do also recognize that you cannot just get rid of compulsory education laws in a vacuum, because you still need to give school boards guidance on how to handle students who are absent. Currently, most compulsory education laws are around the idea that requires all children between the ages of 6 to 16 to attend schools. However, the regulations that exist in there are so fall upon the school boards and school districts.
Okay, so I appreciate and I agree with your position that we currently can't get rid of compulsory laws, because I have no belief that a current system would function half as well as it does if we just took away in a vacuum, which you suggested, and I completely agree with you. I think that's a very reasonable statement. My position is that I do not believe that we are ever going to get to a position where education is so appealing that if we take away all the negative compulsory stuff, that kids will still voluntarily choose to go to school over anything and everything they could do else, like sports, like video games, like hanging out with their friends outside of school, any number of those things. So I am currently on the board with, I think mandatory education must continue to exist. And I think that is entirely separate from my desires, many of which I assume you share, about improving education.
The issue that I have here is that you keep talking about mandatory education, and we don't have mandatory education in the United States.
But you just said we have like compulsory laws.
We have a compulsory education law that requires all children between the ages of 6 to 16 to attend school. But the problem here is that once people hear the term compulsory education law, they think that this is some type of like, oh, we're compelling children to be in school. That's not necessarily the case, as we understand through Yoder v. Wisconsin. Because within Yoder v. Wisconsin, the Free Exercise Clause protects citizens' rights to practice their religion as they please, so as long as the practice does not run in what they call compelling government interest. What this looks like is you can not go to school based on your religious beliefs. However, the Supreme Court also clarified very clearly that the religion, in this case, it was I don't remember off the top of my head, but based Mormons, excuse me, where the proponent of this case is that at around 8th grade, school age students who are Mormon at the age of like around 8th grade, which tends to be around 13 or 14, enter into different crafts. And since the school is insufficient with craft training, the Amish in this case, I keep saying Mormon, I meant to say Amish, they ought to pull their students out of school in order for them to study their trade. Their other concern was around the idea of going against Christian values. Again, in this case, Yoder v. Wisconsin, the Supreme Court upheld it by a majority 6-0. So when we're talking about
May I ask a clarifying question?
Absolutely.
Forgive my ignorance, just so I know, and I suppose so everyone else knows. So you're saying that mandatory education essentially means that the students are forced into school, you have to do it for X length of time, you do the state curriculum, that's that. Whereas compulsory education says that while there must be a commitment to education for this duration of a young person's life, there are instances where excuses or exceptions can be made to better conform to the needs of a community or a religion. Essentially, it's to adhere to the spirit of mandatory education without its exertion fully through the law. Is that basically the distinction?
Yeah, and another thing to reinforce in this, and this is kind of where things get lost, is that we have a right to education. But the problem here is that we have the right to a right to education, but that right isn't necessarily coerced or compelled upon with students. And what this looks like is there's a sort of a tried and true meme of like, if a student isn't absent or out of school for X amount of days, then the police come and drag the student into school. This is a meme that I unironically heard the parents fearing when students are absent. That's not the case, because again, there's two parts of the compulsory education laws. There's the first section that says school-age children from 6 to 16 are required to attend school, but then there's still the additional that school boards and school districts adopt and implement policies and procedures around attendance of students, including, to be very clear, what a definition of an unexcused absence is and all of those things in between. But then different Supreme Court cases expanded things like, and again, this might be rehashing the same thing, and I apologize, the idea of the Free Exercise Clause and the First Amendment of the Constitution broadly. Because when we talk about mandates, yes, Prince v. Massachusetts upheld that a state could force children to be vaccinated, but that is a different conversation, because that's talking about the overriding interest in protecting public health and safety. So we still have, like, does that make sense? Am I making sense right now?
Yeah. So before you go on, I'd like to start like touching these. So the case that you cited, it says you said it protects the rights from the compelling government coercion. And you said at 8th grade, the Amish pulled the kids out of school to study trade. But someone told me in chat, and please verify if this is correct, that the court held that K through 8 was still upheld as mandatory or as compulsory for the Amish. So that felt a little dishonest when you said that, like, hey, the Amish like have a special exemption, when it just their exemption is for 9 through 12, not K through 12. So
right, but the point
the compulsory still exists.
To be clear here, the point of bringing up Yoder v. Wisconsin is that this is used in arguments in terms of mandated education and compulsory education that you're describing. Because there's the argument within the First Amendment, and then there's arguments specifically within the Free Exercise Clause. These are also different terms of it, and we already have this in place. And you recognize this if you went to the public school, where we have religious exemptions to be out of school as excused absences. This is part of that compelling. So I think you would agree that while we ought to have children in school, we should also recognize that this shouldn't be compromising due to things like their religious beliefs outside of school, their physical ability to attend school, and other factors like that. Again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I just...
Right, so I can respond. So I think all of what you just said outside of school, I don't particularly care about. I want to stick on the primary point that our government, despite a semi-religious exemption for the Amish, for potentially other like practices, it's still mandated compulsory education through K through 8. So what that tells me then is that compulsory education is currently allowed, currently upheld inside the laws of our government, even for these religious minorities.
Up until the age of 16.
Up until the age of 16. Okay, and that's
6 to 16 is right. Where this guideline exists.
Cool. Totally poggers. So if we want to like exclude say like like preschool kids from this, that's
well,
fine.
They would be excluded because that they wouldn't start school at 6. But yeah.
Right. If we had universal pre-K, could you see us like moving that law down to like say like 4 because like they would have to go to like mandatory preschool?
Can you pull that up for a second and rephrase? That was a little bit quick of a question.
Oh yeah, sorry. So the question is if we have universal pre-K and they decided that like every kid needed to go to it, could you see this law being changed from 6 to 16 to like 4 to 16 because of like pre-K?
No, I couldn't see something like that happening.
Why specifically for like the younger, like the 4 and 5 year olds? Is there like a reason they gave for that one?
There's a few things in place. One of the things that pre-K teachers talk about is the idea of sort of, God, I'm going to paraphrase a lot of things, but student agency. So the thing here that you're kind of loading it a little bit is that within this universal pre-K, you're saying that there's also going to be a requirement that they have to go to pre-K, because we understand that pre-K and the idea of universal pre-K is separate from K through 12. You understand that, right?
Yes, as it exists right now, but I don't see how it's functionally different if we just had like say K through 13 and we like lowered K1 and like say kindergarten would be first grade. If we wanted to like, I feel like that's like entirely linguistic, or like it's entirely because look what I'm saying. What it feels like kind of odd where we're saying like, oh, like pre-K is like unique from the K through 12 system, and I completely agree with you. But if we expanded our K through 12 system that say you start at 5 instead of 6, and you have 13 grades K through 13 instead of K through 12, I don't think we'd be having this discussion. So this feels kind of like immaterial to like the broader conversation.
Well, you'd have to change the statute, right? Because again, like within New Jersey, that's NJSA 18A 38 through 28 through line 31. So you'd have to change the compulsory education law and drop it down from 4 to 16 for, well, let me clarify this a little bit. You'd have to do it from the year of which their birthday would be. So it wouldn't be 4-year-olds. It would be actually 3-year-olds. Okay. Because they would have to be 4 by the end of that academic year. But right. Then you're also talking about the combination of pre-K. So you're not talking about, it sounds like you're saying, and maybe Voster Prime can interject here, it's the concern that I have here is that within your hypothetical, you're including that we're not in a K through 12 system, we're in a pre-K through 12 system, because currently
I was only asking about the pre-K, just like as a test for the limits of like that specific age group, like to ask as to why it wasn't like say specifically arbitrary. Because if it's say 6 through 16 in specific regard to like how like our school system currently works, because we have like K through 12 when you start kindergarten at like 5 to 6, and then like you can drop out. I think it's like what, like it'd be like sophomore year, like at like 16 years old.
It's on or about, yeah.
Yeah, cool. So that wasn't like the specific point. It was just like to see like where that was going. That's kind of meaningless to my broader argument. So I'm sorry for asking it.
That's cool.
So what I'm asking then is, it seems like there is a good argument that exists in our current structure as to why legally compulsory education exists and should continue to exist, even accounting for religious minorities.
Well, let me ask you a question then.
But I feel like that's a pretty easy, like that's an easy yes, right? Like
can you repeat that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So yeah, that's okay. So we currently have government compulsory education for non-religious exemptions from 6 to 16, and for religious exemptions from like 6 to 14. So it seems that right now, in regards to my conversation with Demon Mama, that when I'm arguing for a mandate, like a compulsory, like mandated system, I'm arguing in many ways for the system, like a part of the system that we currently have. Like, I feel like that, so when people say that like my prescription of having compulsory education is crazy, you just told me that like even with the religious exemption, we still have it like existing right now.
So
right,
Hans, before you continue, Hans, like, so I'm a little confused, and maybe some audience is a little confused, because in your statement just now, you said compulsory mandated. Joe has specifically separated those two out. So, like, just to be clear, are you talking about compulsory as Joe has defined it, or mandated?
Could he define the difference between the two again, just to make sure I don't mix myself up?
Sure. And it's a little bit ambiguous, because the definition, just to be clear here, right? So the issue at hand here, and one of my contentions here, I want to make this contention very clear. The term compulsory education law doesn't actually describe what's happening here. And there's a lot more to that maybe I can get into very briefly. But the problem here is when people hear the word compulsory, they feel like there's sort of enforcement mechanisms to make sure that that child ends up back in the school. That's not necessarily the case, because the second part of the regulations is that it requires each district and school board to develop, adopt, and implement policies and procedures regarding the attendance of students. And you'd be hard pressed to find where a statute would exist that a student would be, in this case, compulsed or coerced or forced to go into the school due to lack of attendance. What tends to happen is that after a student drops over what's considered the an attendance threshold, which usually is 90% of the school year, because like a student, let me rephrase this. A student is required for attendance of a minimum of 90% of the school year to receive full credit for the course or classes. But there's regulations around 14-day absences, or like some in Jersey, we have half courses, so we have 7 days of that. And regardless of you go unexcused, excused, or just straight absent, these have clear definitions. So my contention is with the word compulsory education and compulsory attendance, because they're the enforcement mechanisms around what people might think is compulsory or mandated don't actually look like kids being put into school by some type of force or being like pushed into school in some other ways. Does that make sense?
So you define compulsory. Now, can you please make a distinction between that and mandatory? Because that was like my
mandatory would require that there was some type of mechanism in order to make sure that student would be in school. Because again, it's not necessarily, but it's attendance in school.
Wait, may I interject really quickly? I'd like to ask a few clarifying questions, if I may.
Absolutely.
So it seems like a lot of this is very technical and very nuanced, and I think we need to swap from the descriptive to the normative. So as I understand it, and this is just from me listening here, so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, Hans, it seems like what you're arguing for is not necessarily a hyper-specific implementation of attendance guidelines or ways in which to deal with truancy. You're rather broadly advocating for the idea that there needs to be some kind of mechanism to ensure kids go to school. Is that correct?
Absolutely, and I would add the further a just prescription for that it includes both positive coercion and negative coercion.
Understood.
And if we want to call that compulsory, I'm sorry for defining it differently, and I can say I am now a big defender of compulsory education. I don't think that changes my argument whatsoever beyond just I was using mandatory when I should have been using compulsory.
Okay, so you mentioned the
really
word
quick,
can I? Sorry, Vosh.
Oh, I want to get from you as well. So, as I understand it from your perspective, it's that you feel as though the language that's being used could potentially encompass a wide range of policy towards truancy and absenteeism, and you are looking to distinguish the language that's being used because there's a big difference between like a federal mandate on truancy and there being lenience and exceptions and such like that being left to the local level. So your goal here, I think, was to bring about specificity before laying out your normative critiques. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, wonderful.
That's a fair representation.
So then I have a question. Then the question for Joe, in terms of using your greater knowledge on this, is there any district, or any like school area where there is zero compulsory regulations, like absolutely none?
Well, we'd have to go from each district to see what that looks like, because I feel like this is like an easy yes or no, where it's like, are there any districts in America that don't have any compulsory? I'm not even saying that they have to be like uniform from a federal level. I'm just saying, like, does each place have one? Because I can say that we have nationwide compulsory education, but if you're saying that they're different like place to place, that's fine, but that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking if like each one has its own thing, and that's totally fine if they're all different, but like, so my contention here is with the word compulsory. So can I explain my concern of the word compulsory and give you an example?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. Though after that, I would like to move towards the normative claims if possible. This is obviously a really complicated subject, and I feel like the nuance, while important, might be obfuscating a pretty significant normative difference between both of you. That underlying the language, there's like a really strong moral disagreement at the heart of this, that once we have everything clarified, we can really dig into.
Sure. So the concern I have with compulsory is that we have examples of whether that be school resource officers, police officers, or other officials, or what they call school staff, navigating in such a way that compromises the safety of students when they're trying to bring them back to school or bringing them to school. What this looks like is you might have a situation where a kindergartner leaves school on accident. And this is a situation that happened a couple of months ago where 2 officers responded to that and essentially manhandled that kid back to school. There's over an hour, close to an hour's worth of footage of these officers putting the kid in handcuffs, screaming at them, and it's just causing negative impact.
This was a young African-American child, I remember, right?
Yes.
And he was just wandering out into the road, and they grabbed the kid. Yeah, okay.
And there's also been, and again, I'm going to speak as, I don't want to be vague here, but I don't want to put like previous employers that I've had in a compromisable position, but there have been situations of resource officers and school officials, whether that be like crossing guards and otherwise, functioning outside of their...
Joel, I'll let you finish.
Absolutely.
But I just Googled it, and it says that every single state in our country, including the District of Columbia, has age mandates and requirements for compulsory school attendance laws. So, like, it is nationwide.
Yeah, yes, Hans, but you're missing why I'm trying to avoid the word compulsory, because compulsory for me, and maybe, again, I don't feel like my concern here is being heard, so please help me here, is that I think the language around compulsory doesn't really gel for me, because that induces a type of idea of what that looks like when we're actually getting to the practices and procedures and making sure that students go to school.
Okay, well then,
so
I think...
sorry, Vasha, 1 second, just to clarify.
Okay.
So the issue that you have then is that by calling it compulsory, even though every single state has compulsory laws, they're different enough that you worry that saying compulsory is not speaking about like the perfect detail of the picture of the country, right? Because like you said, every school district is different, like different districts in different states have a conglomeration of different laws. So me just saying compulsory, you feel is too broad of a brush.
Well, even in your representation when you talked about compulsory, you mentioned the idea of coercion. So I wanted to ask you, like, what exactly would you see as a practice, policy, or procedure that would be positive coercion and negative coercion? I don't know. I don't want this to feel like that it's a pivot, but there was something that like I was just kind of concerned about. Like, what does that look like for you?
I think this is good. I think this is important because when we move from the semantics of compulsion versus mandatory and get to the specifics of what policies could be good or harmful, what you described, for example, the police officers accosting that young person for what I assume is truancy, that's an inevitable consequence of using the police as a tool to prevent truancy. Is that something we think is defensible? Do we think that's indefensible? I want to focus on those policy questions because I think it'll get at the heart of the moral disagreement.
Absolutely true. So I would love if we want to talk about how we can have like so here's some examples of positive and negative that exist in our current system, right? You could have say kids that get paid to go to school. So every day you show up, maybe they like give you $1, right, or something like that. Or in the case of bringing Demon Mama, an example she said, and a coercive positive is free food. In this case, a free lunch.
Can I clarify something there specifically?
Okay.
We already have free lunches under COVID, so I want to make that very clear. So with that in mind,
but Joe, but what I'm saying then is we have free lunches under COVID. So I'm giving you a positive example of positive coercion inside our current system, and then a negative example of coercion inside of our current system is that that in many states, again, I can't say if it's like for all of them, fine parents whose kids don't show up to school. So the question that you gave was, do compulsory education laws exist, however varied, across all states? And that is absolutely true. And then you asked for an example of a positive coercion and a negative coercion inside our current system, and I have provided both.
What was the negative coercion that you mentioned? That's why I was trying to try to catch you because you cut out, but you kept powering through.
Fines for parents. That is, this is not something I support. I'm saying this an example of like an existing coercive system that exists. Like,
sure. Do you agree with the idea of, well, we'll just lay the ones that we're talking about, right? So like right now, just to be clear, we don't have any data around free food and having that being connective of, because we're giving out free food, therefore our attendance is increasing. We don't have that data yet. So while we can agree that this is positive coercion, which is what I was trying to say, but I feel like you were something you wanted to say, so I want you to get that off first. So what do you want to say? I couldn't catch it.
I said it. You say there's no explicit data on this, but I feel like, again, I'm not going to ask the mods, but like I'm asking you, man to man, do you feel that if a school did not provide food to students versus a school that did, that one of those schools has a positive coercive mechanism to draw children or convince their parents to send them to school?
Well,
yes or no?
We're required to provide food to students after a certain threshold. So I have to say yes.
It's a positive coercive technique.
That's not coercive because that's required. So once you like,
something could be mandated, but like still be coercive.
So wait, I have a question, if I may.
Okay, I have one afterwards.
Gotcha, because I feel like we're bridging right now the difference between what is effective and what is moral. So I'm assuming that, Hans, your position is that the offering of free meals to children is both an effective and ethical way of, we can say incentivizing, but a positive coercion incentivization of bringing them to the schools. Joe, is your contention that it is ineffective, that it is immoral, or both, or neither?
Maybe I can answer it, and maybe you can help me with where this lies.
I feel like, okay,
it's a pretty easy question.
Go ahead, Joe.
What I'm trying to say here is, is that school lunches are already required after a certain hour threshold. So what that looks like is, as an example, for a half day, you don't have to give school lunches, but it's still an option if you would like. Under COVID, all last year, there weren't school lunches, but school lunches, if you would like to, because there's other issues that might be happening outside of the school body, then you're still provided with that thing. I think that you should feed kids in school. That's not like, I'm not trying to make it seem like I don't want that to happen, but I guess the issue I have here, and maybe I don't know where this lies on the spectrum of what we're talking about, is that I don't necessarily consider that really coercion at all. It's just something that schools have to do.
Yeah. So this is where I was kind of going with this. So, and I hope I'm not obfuscating anything here, but it seems like that what Joe is saying, like, okay, I'm gonna put this in different terms. That with Hanz, that you were saying, like, well, if you had these two different schools, right, that one existed that did offer lunches, one that did, that one would have a competitive advantage, right? And
I
if you're
say nothing about competitive advantage.
I know. I'm using different terms, right? Just to try to bridge this, okay? That one would have a competitive advantage, and to draw in students, right, like customers, right? You would go to the one that said, okay, well, my kid's gonna be fed here. Joe is saying that, well, this is all standard, right? This is like industry standard stuff, and so that it's a basic thing like having lights on, right? Like having running water, and so that wouldn't be a draw for anyone. Okay. Because it's niche one. And now, Joe, do you?
No problem. I can answer this question. So, okay. I have two primary points. The first is that if Joe disagrees on this, I guess we'll have to agree disagree, and chat can decide whether they who they agree with. I believe that food is absolutely coercive, even if it's the standard across schools. I'm not talking about competitive advantage, Prime. I'm not. No. But what I'm saying is this isn't a specific schools competing against each other. This is integral to the societal prescription that I'm making. Is that broadly school as an institution, right? We're using more anarchist words, has food at every location. So every school has the incentive of, at least since COVID, of a free lunch. So it's not about them competing. It's about there being a positive mechanism of food to be there. And it is coercive, even though if you have two schools and they both give food, both are coercive compared to not going to school, because it's not competing between two schools. It's going to school versus not going to school.
Can you elaborate a little bit more for me why you think that because when people hear the word coercive, that's invoking something.
Yeah.
Right. If I may jump in really quickly, I just want to say, I think I understand the root of this disagreement. And if I understand correctly, and I'd be surprised if this wasn't the case, Joe, I assume you're perfectly okay with schools offering free lunches to students. Your issue is that you feel by accepting the framing of that being positive coercion, you're bolstering Hans's argument when this would be something you don't necessarily have an issue with. So you're worried that, in essence, not a Mott and Bailey, but see, coercion can be good. Here's a thing that we both agree on, but you don't think it's a descriptive of the broader things that you're concerned about with Hans's arguments.
Sure. I don't I guess to make it clear, and then maybe you can help me, Vash. I don't consider providing food for students coercive.
We could just disagree on that. I absolutely think it's coercive compared to not providing.
Do you think
food.
We could use like incentive? We can incentivize and we coerce? Maybe switching to that language.
I want to understand.
Wait. So why I'm using the word
Yes.
So why I'm using the word coerce specifically is because in my initial conversation with Demon Mama, she was talking explicitly using anarchist language about coercion and use of force by the state. So I've been using coercion as a catch-all for getting people to do things by either positive coercion, providing something, or negative coercion, giving a potential punishment.
Have I articulated my argument in a way that makes it seem like the use of coercion is appropriate in this context?
Are you asking the moderator or Hans?
I'm asking just anybody who'd like to answer. Am I using language that makes you feel like you need to use what you described as anarchist labels like you did with Demon Mama?
Well, I feel like I explained the definition pretty well. And if you want to use a different word, if you want to call it zip sop versus bing bong, like zip sop is positive.
We cannot do that.
I feel like
okay. So like I think so.
Moderator. I'm trying to moderate. Hold on. So
I'm not trying to be rude. I think Joe knows what I'm saying, and he's being like purposely obtuse about like the language that I'm using to avoid having the conversation.
No. Hold on. I have experience dealing with our friend Joe Lewis here. Joe Lewis is very concerned about using very specific language. This is what started this whole thing, right? And so when you use a word like coercion, and like what Joe was trying to get to before, that coercion evokes a very specific like image in a person's mind, right? As to what exactly that might mean.
Right. So let's use a different word. Let's use a different set of words of Joe's choosing. So Joe, tell me what words. So Joe, tell me what words Joe wants me to use for positive coercion, and what he wants me to say when negative coercion, so we can keep talking.
Hans, do you want me to help me moderate this?
I do, buddy.
I know exactly. So I'm just saying that, like, when we're dealing with this, if you want to interact with Joe, I think part of it is to not minimize like this part, like this very specific use of language, right? Like, because if you guys can agree on these things, then you can move forward. But if you're minimizing it, I'm telling you, this is going to fall apart. So just for everyone else to say.
We should
give me the definitions
do...
that we should use, or just give me the words that you want me to use, Joe. Because I think you really do know what I mean when I say positive coercion, because I provided you a definition, and for negative coercion, and you're fighting me on the words I'm using. Just tell me what you want me to use in place of positive and negative coercion, please. So we can keep talking about the actual issues.
Then let's cut through this as quickly as we can, because I feel like this is a knot we need to unsnarl. So now I could be assuming here, and please, Joe, do correct me if I'm wrong, but sure. I'm gonna guess you probably don't have a problem with schools offering students free lunches. That's not a moral problem to you. Yeah. No. So as I understand it, the thing is with the word coercion is that depending on how wide you stretch the definition of coercion, you can include things like bargaining and trade, or if you tighten it a little bit, you can only refer to things that are immoral. It has a lot of connotations to it. So let's move past the snarl by focusing on things where we have normative disagreements, namely negative coercion. If we're going to agree on the positive coercion stuff, then the language we use to describe it isn't really at hand. I've never seen Joe Lewis argue against providing school lunches for kids.
Right, so let's talk about...
No, I understand. I'm only saying that we should probably focus on the core normative disagreement and then fan out from there. Because that probably centers the discussion a bit better, you know? So with regards to the negative coercion, you said fines for parents. I thought that was good because it's specific, you know? I immediately know what you're talking about. And
got it.
Joe, with that, I assume that's something you would take issue with.
Yes.
Okay. So
what should we call it instead?
I don't think that we should fine parents for truancy.
That's not the question. That's not the question at all. Please engage with the question. What should we call it? I don't care if you disagree with it. I want you to tell me what to call it.
Am I missing a step here?
Yes. You're being purposely obtuse. I don't care if you disagree about whether we should fine parents. I don't like fining parents either. I think that's regressive in regards to punishing poor kids. I use it as an example. I'm not debating you about whether this is a good or bad policy. You asked for an example of what I considered negative coercion. I provided it. You said you didn't like negative coercion. And then I asked, all right, let's not use that word. Let's just call it a fine. And then you say, I disagree with fines. Do you understand how I'm a little bit frustrated? I feel like you're not engaging with my question.
Well, I feel like Voss tried to clarify so we can move past this sort of tie-up of coercion and specifically talk about negative consequences for students being absent from school.
Let's call them negative consequences. Are we okay with negative consequences then?
Well, Joe, would you be okay with what Hanz was referring to as positive coercion being referred to instead as like an incentive? Do you think that'd be like a...
Yeah, we can call them incentive. That's what we call them when we're talking about these things. We don't use, like, just to be clear, I am a teacher in the school district. I've been teaching for over a decade. We don't use the word coercion when we're talking about things like paying kids to go to school, which is a policy that's been brought up in not only in my school board currently, but in previous school boards, and the idea of free food. We don't call this positive coercion. We use different language for that.
Would you be okay, instead of positive coercion, let's call them incentives? And
I just agreed to that. I just agreed to that because that's the language that's used.
Then I asked for that 10
That's
minutes
fantastic.
ago, and we've been looping around because you wouldn't answer that fucking question. So let's continue now, knowing that we will agree for the rest of this conversation that when I say incentive, I'm talking about positive coercion, and those would mean the same thing, and consequence.
For the sake of the conversation, we'll use incentives and we'll use consequences.
Great. So I am in favor.
Is everybody okay with that? Is everybody okay with using those two terms every time we do that? Great. Thanks.
Yes. Awesome. So now I am in favor of a system that is compulsory that I understand has different laws across the United States that include a combination of incentives and consequences. And I think that is an excellent combination for ensuring that kids go to school. I am in favor of having potentially more incentives than consequences, but my issue that was specifically with Demon Mama, and I would love to have your opinion on this, was that she wants absolutely zero consequences, and she only wants incentives. And I feel like that is a potentially dangerous feedback loop as to how it damages the school system and encourages kids not to go to school. So Joe Lewis, I am asking, are you in favor of compulsory systems and regulations that include both incentives and consequences?
I'm a teacher, of course.
Cool, we agree.
We did
it.
Sure, but here's the problem, Hans, right? And this is why this frustrates me, because when we're talking about these things, and when we're talking about these things, especially online, I feel like, and I'm trying to the best of my ability doing this now, and maybe Prime and Voss can interject where like maybe we could do better here, is that I'm very sensitive about language. As an example, if I use the term
clear that you're sensitive about language.
If I
keep going, sorry.
Is there anything else you want to say?
No, go ahead.
Oh, great, thank you. So if I was in a school board meeting or talking to parents like I was yesterday and today, I don't use the terms positive coercion and negative coercion when talking about these things. We have incentives and consequences. And one of the things that currently is a problem is that school boards and school districts across the country are having issues with consequences and enforcement of those consequences. As an example, there is nothing stopping my marching band from not showing up to the football game on Friday. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. The consequence of that is that they wouldn't be able to attend the competition on the next day. But nothing is stopping them from attending. Like there's no incentive that we can give that would encourage them to go, but we create different things in that in order to, this is why we don't call it coercion or even anything of that nature. It's just, we create an environment where students enjoy being there. And that's how these things happen. Now, we can talk about consequences for things like additional absences, advocacy of self-harm, and all these other things, but we don't use language that's going to just bring people out of the room. So my contention within that conversation is that when we're using certain words in certain language, it just, for me, it obfuscates what actually could be had. Because in my opinion, if we're talking about the Demon Mama conversation and invoking that within this, there was a better conversation the two of you could have had with
she's
what we're
equally
dealing.
guilty of that as me?
Of course.
Excellent.
What
I'd like to ask you
that clarification.
If I watch that debate, I know it's behind a paywall, but I will pay to sub to you to watch it. If I watch it, are you promising me that you are equally frustrated with Demon Mama as with me in our use of language that you disagree with for the purpose of this conversation?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Yes. So if I watch your coverage of my conversation with Demon Mama, will I find a balanced critique of both of us not using the correct language?
No, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because one of the issues that was had is that you never got to this part of the conversation. So what ended up happening is that there was the constant moving of things that had nothing to do with the idea that we're talking about right now, right? But this is why I asked for Prime to come in here on this, because I felt like we were going to have I'm showing my hand here. I felt like you were going to walk into this conversation and we were going to have a conversation about my conduct on Twitter, which is
I still want to have that conversation.
Correct. Can I finish this and then
Absolutely.
I'll give you the floor? The reason why this was my concern is that the conduct that you had in terms of Demon Mama with the debate, I have it divorced from the conversation that we're having right now. I'm able to divorce that in my head and able to navigate on this with you, because you and I, if I'm being quite frank, don't have bad discussions.
I also agree with that. So what I was so frustrated with was your specific wording on Twitter. And I know we can have a good conversation now, but it feels like, and I'm being completely honest, I'm going to play my hand right now by going through the points that you just said. You said that when you're talking to parents, you don't use the language that I use. We've already covered that. That's a semantic thing. We've handled it. We share the same definitions now. I promise whenever I'm arguing, even when it's with anarchists who only use the word coercion, I'm only going to use incentives and consequences. You're welcome. Thank you so much for helping me with that.
Wait,
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Well, I'd actually, before you do,
Sure.
I'd like to as well. So I just want to clarify where we are at the moment. It does feel like a lot of this initial disagreement has been semantic, but the semantics
I think it's more than semantic, and Joe has walked back to the semantic conversation to avoid the actual conversation.
Hold on. Hold on. So a lot of it is a semantic disagreement, which there's nothing inherently wrong with that. I do think there's a more substantive moral disagreement here. Obviously, you probably both don't agree exactly on which types of negative coercion you think would be acceptable, and there's probably a discussion to be had there, but I don't know if the actual disagreement is on that. The impression that I'm getting here is that, Joe, you felt that the conversation that Hanz had with Demon Mama, consequences, my apologies, we're using consequences now, my bad.
And if we would like, we can watch that debate right now. All four of us, we can watch it together. So it's only 30 minutes. I think that would provide a bunch of extra useful context.
So my impression, and that may be useful evidence in the future, but at the moment, my impression is that, Joe, your concern was in the conversation that you saw, which I have not seen, but in what you saw was a wasted conversation where the discourse was never elevated to a point where nuance could be injected. It was just the brute implementation of terms like coercion, which you're uncomfortable with because your experience with academia has not been one where that term is used that often when reference to getting kids into their seats. So you're following that lack you felt in that discussion led you then to be critical of Hanz on Twitter and presumably on your stream. And
yes.
And of course, Hanz is responding to that now. So it looks like the crux of the discussion isn't about what you both think about schooling or how to get kids' butts in seats, but rather how you both feel about your reaction to the conversation that Hanz had with Demon Mama. In which
Absolutely
case,
true.
It might.
So I feel like we should talk about Twitter. We should talk about what he said, because I think we. Sorry,
hold on. Let Vosh.
Sorry, Vosh, you can finish. Then I have something to say. So go ahead.
In which case, I would agree with Hanz that we probably should talk about the contents of the Twitter thread. Obviously, and I think it should be said, having been in this position a million times myself, I don't think anybody is ironclad to any position they've taken on Twitter, especially not in contexts like these. But it seems like that is where the crux of the disagreement is, right? More so than any policy discourse, on the particulars of the matter. With that, I'd like to, if I may, Joe.
Yes.
Can you take that topic away? Give me your intro to it, your thoughts, how you were led to this point, and what you would like to say before Hans begins their, no doubt, disagreement.
Wait,
in terms of
before we start, I would like to ask Joe a couple of questions. Very basic.
Are they on the Twitter thread, or are they on the normative?
They're on the normative stuff. So I think that's very important. So
okay. If that's okay with you, Joe.
I'm cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we agree on the use of incentive as language, right? We agree on the use of negative as consequence, correct?
That's what yes.
We both currently believe and follow or support the law of the land that, including religious exemptions, every kid from either 6 to 16 or 6 to 14 has to be in school.
It's required by law.
Yeah, right. It's required by law. Excellent. Do we both believe that to enforce that law, we should use a combination of incentives and consequences?
Here's the problem, and maybe this might open a wholly other thing.
Okay, do you not believe incentives or consequences? Like, is it one of the two?
don't think we need the compulsory education laws in the States. I think we can be totally fine with the incentives and consequences levied down onto school boards and boards of education, school boards and school districts, which already happens. So the federal law, like the state doesn't make the guidelines. It offsets that to the school boards and school districts. And I think they have a better way of assessing what works for their communities. So I don't necessarily think you need compulsory education laws. So you don't need a requirement for students to go to school from 6 to 16. So you can just allow the school boards and school districts to offset that.
So I need immediate clarification to that really quickly.
Yeah.
So in practice, what you're saying is that the policies.
This is leave it up to the states. This is like leave it up to the towns.
Well,
Bosch, go ahead.
In practice, what you're saying is that the policies of the school board will remain, but because we're no longer dealing with state law, police officers cannot be used as a mechanism for enforcing the policies of these school boards. It becomes a non-police-oriented matter, and it's instead left entirely to the jurisdiction of these schools. Is that the practical difference between these two things?
Sort of. Again, like just to be clear here, school boards and school districts can implement, adopt, and develop policies and procedures regarding these things. So if they want to, they can involve local law enforcement, which they already have to for certain other situations. They can have something else like resource officers. These things already exist, so I don't know if compulsory education laws are needed. I would go as far as to say that they're not, and we can offset this back to, as we currently do already, district boards of education, and sorry, let me clarify this to make sure I'm clear. School boards and school districts and schools generally. I don't think you need both of those things, because I don't see a world where if we remove.
So my question.
Joe,
Yeah, I don't see a world where, again, I'm not talking about removing these. I don't see a world where if we remove compulsory education laws, that schools are just going to totally change what has been in practice for their schools for some for decades and legacies of students, just because this one requirement is lifted.
So to be clear,
he didn't answer my question. I would really like.
I want to ask him to answer that.
You do that, Hans. I promise. Vosh, please answer the question. I have a question too, and I definitely want to hear what you have to say, Hans. But I think we're about to get to the heart of this. So
yeah, I need to clarify, because I feel like we can save a lot of future mess with current clarity. So what you just said, Joe, is not an explicit dismissal of consequences as an important component of getting kids butts in seats. What you're saying is that essentially you think the broad state policy can be harmful because it doesn't involve or allow for the degree of nuance or flexibility that local school board practices might. You're essentially making like the argument people make with minimum wage, where it's good if it gets raised all across the board, but 15 across the board might be more beneficial in some communities and more harmful in others. Might be too low in some states, you know. So your argument essentially is one of flexibility, not against consequences.
Correct.
Okay, so we don't disagree. You just would prefer a non-federally mandated system, but you would still prefer, and like again, stop me here. Are you legitimately okay if a municipality decides that it has no consequences and no incentives, no mechanism to get butts and seats? Are you okay with that?
We would have to talk.
It's a yes or no question, Joe.
But
I'm literally asking if you're okay. Dude, please don't do this. Holy shit. Like, do you understand how this feels really fucking weaselly? I'm not even.
And I'm trying my best to be patient with you, and I'm trying my best to understand. I'm trying my best, Hans. I'm trying my best to be patient and understand everything that you are. I'm trying to be patient and understand.
Wait, Joe.
Make him answer the question. This is literally like he said he wants every school district to choose for itself. And again, I can fight him on that because there's other stuff that I want to bring up after he answers this question, yes or no. It's kind of important for him to answer this question. So I'm just asking, in the system that he is currently supporting and advocating for, which is different than the current system, is he okay if a municipality or school district decides to have zero incentives or consequences? That's a very fucking
So I'm just wait. So I'm just trying to clean the line of convo up a little bit because the convo's skewed a bit. Joe's talked more than Hans in total, I think.
Absolutely.
Right. So with regards to you, Joe, yes or no on that? Simple yes or no. Quick clarification, because I do think it could be a bit
second
leading.
point that's extremely important.
Right, and then back to Hans. So just yes or no, quick clarification, then back to Hans.
So to make this as clear as I can, Hans, can you restate your question to the best of your ability?
Okay, so I'll do this. I'm gonna type this out. All right, on chat, and I will say it all.
I'm not watching it. If you want to type it, that's fine.
But I want chat to be able to follow this, right?
Sure.
All right. So 1, you want local control. I'm using local because like typing municipalities and school districts is difficult. So you want local control over compulsory stuff, right?
Compulsory state law.
Because right now we have it like mandated like federally, and then states like do the like slightly variations.
Well, that wasn't. So that was the preceding question, right? Not the incisive one. The question you asked, and you can all hear me say it, just to be clear, because we can't get snagged on everything. Joe, would you be okay with a highly localized system where school boards are the ones that set these policies, having no rewards, no incentives or punishments to get kids in school? Would you be okay with them just completely abandoning those modes of behavior? Yes or no, then clarify, and then go back to Hans.
Absolutely. I would not be okay with that.
Okay. So you're
answer
not,
is no.
Okay, great. So then the question...
Can I clarify with what that means?
Yeah, briefly, but then back to Hans, because I know we have a lot of questions to...
Yes, that I believe that you still need to make sure in the removal, again, I don't think we should remove compulsory education law in a vacuum. You have to still make sure that the school boards function in a way where they have clear incentives and consequences for attending school. I want to make something also very clear that incentives, when we're talking about incentives, when schools are talking about these things, they don't articulate that within certain policies. So you don't get to see how you're rewarded for attendance, as an example.
Okay. Hans.
Does that make sense?
So this goes to the second question.
I gave you a yes or no. I want a yes or no here.
I love it. Yep. Awesome. So you want local control over compulsory stuff. You said no, that it's not okay if they do literally nothing. And so you say that we need incentives and consequences. So then my question is, why would we leave it to the local level if you're not okay with the decision of the local level? Because you said that we need to have like a federal compulsory thing. If you're saying we need the federal compulsory law and then just divide it further and not have it be like, say, a mandate by the states, then that seems fine. But I'm making sure that that's what you're saying. So are you saying that you want the federal mandate of 6 to 16, like the federal law?
I don't want the federal mandate of 6 to 16.
Okay, so you don't want federal control, but you are not okay.
And also, it's not. Let's be hold on, wait, stop. Let's be clear about something, because we just fucked up, both of us and all of us.
Oh no, we did not. You're fucking up. I got you in a vice, and you're trying to pivot again.
No, there's no federal mandate on this. Each state has
Federal
different
law, state
compulsory
mandates.
education
Cool.
laws.
Semantics again. I'll say federal.
No, it's not. This is an
federal
important
law,
distinction.
state mandates. Awesome.
This is an
Cool.
important distinction here.
I grant you distinction. Please answer the question. So, federal law, state mandate. You want to get rid of the federal law.
I want to get rid of the state mandates.
You want to leave federal law, keep state mandates. Sorry. So which one do you want to get rid of? Federal law or state mandates? Which one do you want to remove, or both?
Give me
This is
one
a yes or
second.
no. This is a state.
Give me 30 seconds. My girlfriend's calling me.
Just type it at me.
All right, temporary memorandum then. Girlfriend calls are a sacred element of debate format.
Indeed, it is.
Everyone, roll your shoulders. I've been playing video games the whole time, so I don't need to.
I'm gonna get a protein shake. I'll be right back.
I've been wishing I was playing video games the whole time.
That's your fault, man. Why did you boot Penny up?
Well, I've never. Well, one, my stream isn't even up, and I don't play games on my streams, so pure political content.
It's rough out here, huh?
Yeah. Oh, what are you playing?
Playing Psychonauts 2. This game slaps so hard. The original came out like 16 years ago or whatever. It's super good, and the sequel's even better. I've always like blown away by it. It's really good.
Okay. Because I don't have time because I focusing on my stream. I'm only now playing Persona 5 Royale, so I was just doing that before I was getting ready for stream. Yeah.
Nice. What are you?
Nice.
I'm really excited. I finished my Pokemon. I finally beat my hardcore Pokemon Emerald Nuzlocke, so I'm really excited to like start doing some new games. I'm probably gonna like mostly do Magic the Gathering for a bit because like the new set just got released, so like that format's pretty bumping. But I am excited to try some new stuff. I think I'm gonna try and like just do the Destiny meme of like just trying a game and playing it on stream until I beat it, see how it feels.
Okay.
That kind of thing.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so going back to the original question, right? Like, let's provide in the background. So you want local control over the compulsory stuff, and there was a miscommunication between whether you want to get rid of the federal law or the state mandates. So, which one do you want to get rid of, or both?
So no, it's not, because are we talking?
Oh my god, dude! Like, how is this not?
Hans,
how is this
when you
not
say
a simple question?
let's ball then. When
Do
you
you
talk
wanna-
about the federal law, what federal law are you referring to? Are you referring to the
6 to
ESSA?
16.
Wait, I'm sorry. Wait, please, if I may.
This feels extremely bad faith.
I don't necessarily know if it's bad faith. I just don't know if it's necessary. Whatever Joe answers, will it change your opinion, Hans? Will you back if whether or not Joe answers to this or to that? Does that change the fundamental disagreement, or is this nuance being injected into a point that doesn't change the fundamental disagreement?
It does. So here's what my issue is, right? So it seems that Joe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, wants local control over the compulsory stuff. I have not gotten an answer as to whether or not he wants to remove the federal law. And then there's two branches for where this goes. If he says yes, he wants to remove the 6 to 16 thing, right, and have it just be at the local level, the question then is, how do we ensure that certain districts, maybe they're run by like the Koch brothers or something, have zero compulsory education rules?
Hans, I want to help you here. Every state has different age requirements. So when you say federal law, you're not.
But the federal
is
6 to 16, right? Please don't be like.
It's not, Hans. In Rhode Island,
I thought.
Shut the fuck up. Wait, stop. I'm now officially frustrated.
Stop. Hold on.
You said it was 6 to 16 federally. Is that true? Yes or no?
Wait,
6 to 16.
Please. Before any further nuance, Joe, your God,
yes.
Which laws would you like removed or changed? By their name, or if not that, a designation we could all recognize. Please.
I want to remove the compulsory school attendance laws across all of the states. The age requirements for every state is different. For example, in District of Columbia, it's 5 to 18. In Iowa, it's 6 to 18. Another one off the top of the head that I know is Montana, which is 7 to 16. Correct. So when we're talking about federal law, each state has a different age requirement. So this is where I'm getting confused in your question.
And that's
Hans.
what you want to remove. So there's a federal law, and I am not educated on this, so please tell me if I'm wrong. There is a federal law that requires the states to adhere to a certain degree of scrupulousness when it comes to getting students in the schools. And the states then follow that with their own individual mandates, which vary from state to state. And it is those individual mandates and all the state force behind them which you do not believe necessary. You think that their function can be carried out not by the state laws, or the state mandates, I should say, but rather by the school districts directly in charge of those students.
And then there's the federal decision.
Well, I just didn't...
Wait, that Joe brought up about like the religious exemptions, and where the
Supreme Court decision, but
the Supreme Court decision decided, right, that it requires kids from 6 to 16 that they have to go to school, right? And then that's an exemption that it's 6 to 14 for the religious kids. So we have a federal Supreme Court ruling, and then we have state differences in numbers that you want to get rid of. So we agree with those two things, right?
Hold on, and one more thing. The federal on the federal level, right? So there's this ruling that we've been talking about that brings in these religious exemptions, right? But specifically in terms of policy, there's a policy on the federal level. Is there a law? Is there anything that says that there's an age restriction, right? For this policy. Like,
I'm talking about, just to be clear, are state education practices. This is where compulsory.
So the federal court decision, right?
No,
that's
law.
No.
Yeah. So because I want to make sure that we understand what we're talking about, because
there's a national law from the Supreme Court. So Joe, like, are we going to keep that? You want to get rid of that as well?
I can't get to say. Do you want to get rid of a Supreme Court decision? That's the law. The free exercise is protected. So the free
that didn't answer the question at all. Like,
Hans, can I clarify why it does? And then maybe we can have Vasher Prime inject in this.
I would prefer they didn't. I would prefer it just be you and me in a back and forth. They only jump in when necessary. I feel like you're not answering my questions. You keep
the free exercise clause protects citizens' rights to practice their religion as they please, so as long as that practice does not run in terms of what they called compelling government interest.
Who brought that?
And the court upheld that K through 8 was upheld for mandatory education, even for the religious exemptions.
What was the name of that court case?
Yoder v. Wisconsin.
Wisconsin's a state. So this is a Supreme Court case on a mandate in a state. The legal jurisprudence refers to the behavior of the states in affecting the national law. So
this is everywhere. This is a national law mandating, if we're using the religious exemption, 6 to 14. If we're not, 6 to 16. So Joe said he would like to get rid of the state laws about the mandate stuff. So that I'm asking, would he leave the federal one in place? And that's another simple yes or no answer. I don't need a clarification on that.
So, Joe,
we define the parameters.
The federal provision, the case law, which states the religious exemptions earlier discussed, this is something that you would like kept as policy with regards to the local jurisprudence, or you do want that kept, that fundamental ability to...
I firmly believe that, just so we're clear on a very substantial, what my claim here is, what I'm trying to take a stance on, is that the freedom of religion is protected, and I think that ought to be protected.
Cool. That's great, but you realize that's not my fucking question. Like, the question is you're okay keeping the federal one?
Can I ask the moderators a question then?
Oh my God. Okay, go ahead. Should we keep the federal court case in place or not? The court decision, we're okay with that, right? We want to go to the states, but we're okay with the federal one.
You said yes, and then you kept talking.
Guys, please, just make it answer this question. It's a yes or no for the federal court one.
As I understand it, I believe that Joe Lewis is in favor of that ruling. With the removal of the state mandates, I don't know what the legal technicalities of preserving that ruling without the mandates themselves would be, but I don't think that level of nuance is necessary here. That's a highly
but I'm saying it's possible to overturn that decision, right? Like with the I'm asking if you would prefer it to be overturned. This is like a prescriptive question now.
If he could,
believe
Joe is defending No, so I believe I'll allow Joe to speak, but I feel like we have to move past this point. I believe Joe is defending
I need
the
an
fundamental...
answer on this point, Vosh.
I'm siding with Yoder, and I will side with Yoder forever.
What does that mean?
The free exercise clause protects citizens' right to practice their religion as they please. Therefore, I do not think even if I were to remove the age requirements of every single state, I think that students and parents should still be protected in terms of their free exercise of religion in schools.
Okay, so you
Is
do.
there any way I can be
So
more
we
clear on
we
that?
will get rid of the state mandates, but we'll leave the federal ruling in place, and then we'll allow the municipalities to do their own thing. That's literally all I've been asking for the last 15 goddamn minutes.
Okay, so I acknowledge.
Such an easy clarification.
Hanz, I want to make something clear here. And is there a way for us to deafen so the stream can't hear you?
No,
So I can talk,
want everyone to hear this. Anything you can say to me.
This is a personal thing, and I want this between you and the four of us. Is that possible?
Nope. We can talk off stream. I want to finish this right now. I can stay up all night. I got work at 6. I'm free till then, buddy. Let's go.
I will put a message for all of us in chat. I'm doing that now. This is important here.
Which chat is that?
I'm just gonna make a group chat.
Okay.
And after that, or after this, we need to move from this topic, I think.
I got what I wanted. I really appreciate it. I just wish it would have gone faster. I feel like I ask very simple questions. I provide all the clarifications and qualifications for them, and then Joe still feels the need to dance around it for 5 minutes before you guys inject, and then he goes again. Then I ask the question again, and I finally bully him into saying what I fucking wanted him to say in the first place.
Could you read what Joe's typing? Not out loud, of course, but just read.
Oh,
that,
I was
please.
like, you want me to read it out loud?
Oh, please.
Okay, buddy. I'm not trying to bully you. Fuck. Okay,
Yeah. Can
these...
can we try to just be a bit more charitable, please?
Oh, okay. Here's the thing, though. It's getting very frustrating for me. I don't have something in particular that does this, but I feel like right now, and I feel like chat feels this way very much as well. That I provide all the qualifications for a very simple question, and then Joe goes, and then I try and ask again, and then you stop me. You say let him finish. He goes on again. Then you guys interject, and then I ask the question again, and we finally get to the end. I think we could save ourselves all a lot of time. Again, I will be here until 6 a.m. I have to leave for work at 6:30. I can be here until then. But I feel like this is
all I can say. It would be highly inappropriate for me to comment on the debate while I'm still putting on my moderator hat. All I'll say is that I think that through communication difficulties, broadly, we have taken a long time to arrive at some of these points, which is interesting to me because it still feels like we're only on the precipice of the fundamental disagreements here. I understand that we've already expended a lot of our energy and interest on these topics, but if possible, I would like to move beyond them and towards what initiated this disagreement to begin with, which was Twitter. If that's okay with you, Joe, and if that's okay with you, Hanz, I would like to specifically frame the conversation around that from this point forward.
Around Twitter? Cool. I think we, honestly, with Joe's qualification, I actually don't think, I'm not sure if I actually disagree. Since we leave the federal thing in place, I think it's actually a pretty cool idea to allow municipalities, provided we still have that safety net of the federal ruling, to protect them. That sounds really, really great. I don't think that's I don't think that's measurably different for me than if there were just the state mandates, right? As long as there was say a federal baseline, which it seems like there is, then that sounds really cool. So I think we agree on that. I think we agree that that each in this case municipality, right, has positive incentives and then negative consequences, right? That encourage compulsory going to school, and that will be whatever the framework of that municipality decides, or that school district. And if it's not to Joe or my standards, which may be different, his might be higher than mine, right? Then the federal law, or the federal ruling will protect that from being abused. That sounds absolutely awesome. So with that in mind, fucking based, fucking poggers, I think we agree that the federal thing should remain in place. I think I haven't done the research. Again, this is me, taking an L on my ignorance. I am not currently decided whether I would prefer the state one versus Joe's very interesting local municipality one, right? And with that in mind, I feel like we agree that school should not be abolished, or at least in the conversation that I had with Demon Mama, in that phrase, I think Joe and I could probably agree that even right now into the recent future, we are okay with the current government having some kind of compulsory incentives and consequences for kids to go to school. And if that's the case, we essentially agree. We agree that that in this case, some flavor of compulsory education is necessary for our society. And then at that point, we're hammering over details. And then Joe is not the person that I've been arguing with. I've been arguing with people like Demon Mama and Jack, who argue explicitly for getting rid of those compulsory things. So
perhaps I've noticed this happens with me as well sometimes, where you find yourself disagreeing with people who seem to have adopted the positions of the people that you initially disagreed with, when in reality they just didn't agree with your initial position. It seems Joe Lewis's concerns had a lot more to do with the arguments employed in that debate specifically, or perhaps the affect of that debate, than the broader normative positions we've agreed upon now, which is good. It's good to move through that. But I want to ask, because I've presumed a lot because I never got affirmation. Joe, are you okay with next us talking about Twitter?
After the discussion, I was very frustrated in your conduct in that debate, Hans. I'm going to be as clear as I can on this, and then we can get to
the debate now.
I'm going to be as very. I'm sorry.
That was mean. That was bad faith on my part.
It's okay. It's okay. So, again, I don't know how to make this any more clear. I am not your enemy.
Dude, I like you. All right, I like you, man.
This is a patch. We'll get through it.
Okay.
But yes, my conduct on Twitter ought to be recognized. But I want to make very clear where this comes from.
Okay, that's good. And it is important that we get through to it as well, because if we don't, it seems like a lot of the lingering antagonism is going to persist, which is obviously not ideal. So I would like to now move over to the vaunted and beloved Twitter section of this debate, so that we can talk about that conduct and how we feel about it. So
absolutely.
Okay.
And Hans, if you could do me a favor, if you could DM me the Twitter thing, I have not.
Absolutely, buddy. I got it all pulled up.
Thank you very much.
So there are a lot of tweets here. If we went through them point by point, while that may add some nuance to the discussion, I feel like there's a very bad time to energy investment there. So what I would instead ask is, if we
specific things that I would like to
right, a couple of specific things. Now you take the contention, Hans. So can you lay out a couple of points, maybe not everything, but at least top 3 tweets you take issue with, and we can point at those and get to them as quickly as we can.
Absolutely. And for everyone that I do, I welcome Joe to pick any of my tweets in the last 24 hours, and I am happy to explain those as well. So my first and biggest thing that I take issue with, all right, is specifically, and let me find this to make sure I'm reading it correctly, right, is you are developing a body count. Cherry and now Demon Mama. This is looking incredibly anti-fem. You better fucking check yourself. Take a couple days off to self-reflect. So I just had a very fruitful conversation with Joe, who stressed endlessly the importance of clarification and specificity of language. So I want him to be very fucking specific. Explain how I looked so incredibly anti-femme for my conversations with Cherry and Demon Mama, and what he meant specifically when he said I better fucking check myself. I'm just curious.
As the exchanges that were going on between you and Demon Mama and the things that my community brought to me in terms of the conversations between you and Cherry, and then another message that you sent right after the all women's panel, which is now in chat, I was concerned about your behavior on panels, specifically around women. Now, the comment that was just sent to me was sent months ago. To make that as clear as possible.
Yeah. And I will read it right now. I can read that right now.
Let me finish everything, and then the floor is yours. So I was concerned about how you were navigating in these certain situations. Something that I'm now understanding is just a quirk that you have, is that sometimes you feel like when people do have more longer-winded explanations about things, you feel like it comes off. I'm just telling you how it comes off, that you might not feel like you're being heard or the opportunity to be fully heard. And I'm recognizing that now in real time. With that being said, and I'm not trying to move away from a position, because I will own what I said and we can talk about what I meant by anti-femme, is that when you are interacting with these individuals, and now this case, we can include Riverboat Jack here as well, because that VOD exists, when individuals,
tomorrow,
specifically femmes, have been navigating with you, you change. And it's very strange to see in real time, where even in the conversation with Demon Mama, it's very clear she doesn't want the conversation. And there's certain inner contentions, and even when she acknowledges those inner contentions, you still continue. Now, granted, there's probably some other context with here, right? Because when you get gassed up on Twitter and they go into a conversation from the person one-on-one, there can be some animosity there. We have mountains of context with that. We've all dealt with that, each one of us in this call, of that happening. So I want to make sure that that's clear. Sometimes we're not the best articulators in those times. But my concern is that the same conduct that happened with Sherry, then happened with Demon Mama, and then there was this one thing floating in my head in regard to that panel, and I'm like, there's something weird here. But to be clear here, I don't think you're sexist. However, just because I don't think you're sexist doesn't mean you can't participate in anti-femme behavior. No different if we're gonna switch it a little bit about on race, right? Because again, my stream is centered on having better conversations about race. You can be anti-racist while still participating in anti-blackness.
Okay.
So at its core, there were things and ways you were navigating with these individuals that I considered incredibly disrespectful. And that was my point of contention.
Okay.
Absolutely. So let me try and explain this for you, right? So there was a specific grab of a Discord message that I sent in August of 2022, which, as many people here probably know, but some of us probably know, is that was high time around the Prime drama, which I was intimately affiliated
Hanz,
with.
2022?
Sorry, August 2020, August 22, August 22nd, 2021. Sorry, my bad.
No worries.
So, and so everyone knows this. During the initial accusation stream, I came out vigorously against Prime because Kat had led me to believe that he had done things that I found were atrocious. I participated in that initial call. Destiny came on, and we all know saved Prime's ass. Very, very cool. And I was distraught because I thought this was a lockdown, like absolute slam dunk. We stopped a predator, and Prime is not that. And so I was hearing a lot of this information in real time. So after that stream, absolutely fun canon for everyone. I bawled like a baby on stream. I fucking cried my eyes out. I cried like a motherfucker for 20 minutes. I watched anime to cheer myself up, and I literally did not sleep. I spent the entire night watching all the information as it came out, right? And during that conversation, while that was happening, we understand that there was a women's panel where someone on that women's panel, I'm not going to say her name because there's 600 people here, but if I am forced to, I will clarify her name, called Destiny a groomer for sticking up for Prime because Destiny is probably a groomer or some flavor of accusation. And so there was a lot of drama happening at the same time. And so I was distraught. I was struggling with who to trust and who to believe. I felt like I had been betrayed. I felt like my reputation had been used to slander a good man in the case of Prime. And I was fucking broken. And so it came to my attention at some point during that conversation, like during that period of time, the woman who accused Destiny of being a groomer said, "Has Hanz messaged any of you about what happened to check if you're okay?" To which I responded with, and I will bring, I'm showing this thing, I'm showing the message on stream, right? Don't worry, Joe, actually 1 second. Let me just type a bunch of shit really quick.
You can just save the message and share it on your stream, Hans.
Okay, cool. So,
do you know
yep. So I got it. So here's the message I sent. I thought this was a private message, but I will say it now. Ready? I said, I talked to some women before I did this, specifically in regards, I believe, to the Prime Cat stuff. And I said sorry that I didn't individually comfort every person on the women's panel who decided to pick a fight with Destiny while I was dealing with my own shit. Because like I said, I bawled like a bitch. I was absolutely distraught. I was mortified and sad as hell. And so yes, that strained my relationship with some women who came after Destiny for what he said in his initial defense of Prime. And I am sorry that I offended some of those people. I'm sorry if I made them feel like I wasn't an ally. Ladies, if you're listening, I'm telling you, I was an emotional wreck for that entire period. Everyone who knows that can watch that. There are still VODs of me fucking crying, floating around DGG and Stream Table. You can check all of that stuff. In regards to debates, I am heated with virtually every debate panel I am on. Dylan Burns can attest to this as me being one of the most fiery people on the Hippy Dippy. Prime can attest to this as him like multiple times having to fucking mute me because I'm screaming at, and specifically, virtually all men on his after panels with a veracity that is literally not matched by anyone else that goes on there. So I am an aggressive debater. I scream, I get loud, I get heated, and I don't think that is particularly in response to women. I was heated with Cherry, and I absolutely admit that I failed optically and that I was extremely aggressive, right? And I seemed, in some ways, slightly unhinged, even though I feel like my arguments about tax policy were superior. I do not think, looking at my debate with Demon Mama, that I approached anywhere near the level of ferocity and veracity that I normally achieve during my debates. I think that was because I did this on purpose. I talked about this with several people afterwards. Optically, I wanted to not come across as screaming at a woman because I knew that that had already happened with Cherry, and I specifically wanted to avoid what Joe Lewis seemed to have been insinuating with the initial tweet that, again, I appreciate that we now understand more context for. So I was calmer. I was passive aggressive, but I think that was fair given the context. In regards to Jack, I think I was also fair given the context. I was heated. I'll absolutely admit that.
Do you believe that your conduct and the way that you handled Riverboat Jack was different than the conduct that you handled yourself with Demon Mama? Do you think that if somebody were to watch both of those side by side, they would be seeing something different?
I was definitely more aggressive with Jack than with Demon Mama. Absolutely true. And I'm happy to watch that over again right now.
Do you side and think that this thumbnail is fair. Is this a fair representation and something you ought to put
That the
as a
thumbnail,
portion of Riverboat Jack's argument and what the conversation was? Do you think that that thumbnail is a fair representation of what they were saying?
100%.
And do you think that it's appropriate?
100% appropriate, 100% factual. I asked Jack this. I'll show the thumbnail, chat. Everyone ready? Everyone ready. Here is the thumbnail. Riverboat Jack debate. The state shouldn't stop suicidal children. Is that mean? Absolutely. Did she literally say that during our conversation? Absolutely. It was 100% factual. As a content creator, I reserve the right to be spicy, despite the fact that it is 100% fucking true. And
okay,
so, yes,
I'd like to follow up with a question, if I may. So we've heard a lot. When defending oneself, I can attest personally that when defending yourself against accusations of, you didn't say sexism, Joe. You said perhaps off behavior with femmes.
Anti-fem.
Anti-fem, right. When being accused of behavior along those lines, which I think still fits within the purview of bigotry, it can be difficult to make yourself a good character judge and character witness. You have to be both of those things for yourself, which is obviously a very biased position, but it's the only one you can take. I don't fault anyone for being in that position. It's just difficult to get through. So, with regards to this thumbnail, since we have something specific, Joe, Hanz contends this thumbnail is fair. You obviously feel differently. Why do you feel it's unfair?
I think that Riverboat Jack didn't have the, and again, in real time, this is how I felt. So in a rewatch, that might change. And I want to make that clear. In watching
if you didn't like how I treated Demon Mama, you're not gonna like how I treated Jack. I was considerably more aggressive with her.
Correct. Now, with that being said, my concern here is that I don't think you as this kind of a similar situation was what was happening with Demon Mama. I don't think you were understanding Riverboat Jack's point. With that being said, she also articulated this to a certain degree after the stream as well. So I'm not the only one who feels this way.
I understand that she felt frustrated, but I can say that I was.
Do you think that your conduct? Do you think that your conduct it helped in any way to ease that frustration?
No, we were having a spirited, I would say, close to blood sports level debate that was barely kept in check by our moderator. Absolutely not.
Wait, hold on.
It was extremely aggressive.
A point was missed here, unless I missed it not being missed. Joe, with regards to the thumbnail's fairness, do you think it was unfair, or do you simply think that Hanz's behavior contributed to the stupidity of the conversation, which led it to that point?
Hanz's behavior contributed to the stupidity of the conversation.
Okay, so with the conversation being as it is then, you would concede that it is a fair thumbnail, given the context.
If that's how he wants, I guess it's like.
Would you prefer if
I just want to clarify, because those are two fairly different things. I just want to make sure.
What if I got rid of suicidal and instead put something along the flavor of Roblox? Because that was the language that we used for that conversation, even though we both slipped up at times and said the actual word. Would you prefer I use Roblox?
It's your content, Hanz.
Then what are you criticizing?
You can. I'm just.
You asked if it was okay. I told you it was okay, so we have no issue then, right?
The concern I have again, Hanz, is that the way that you navigate yourself in panel discussions feels incredibly performative. And if that's how you want to do things, that's how you want to do things. I can't stop you from doing that. However, the issue that I have here is that your performality is giving you a very difficult time in understanding what people are saying when you're talking to them. As an example, right here. As an example, during Riverboat Jack. As an example, during Demon Mama. As an example, in Cherry. I talked to you on Twitter about Cherry after that happened, and I asked you what would be the purpose of having an additional conversation. And then you just obfuscated that with the exact same answer. I'm concerned that
we can read that again if you'd like.
I'm concerned that your performality is preventing you from building good arguments and articulating your ideas in the best way possible. I feel like you are at your best in interactions like we are having right now. And I understand and recognize that that is a very unpopular thing to do on Twitch.
So here's my perspective. Like, Joe, I love you. I have experience in academia. I was a research assistant for a political economist in New York for 2 years. I have a bachelor's degree in public policy. I do lots of academic things and intellectual things for my job, which again, I do not make public. I am very buttoned down, by the books, intellectual when I need to be. When I have a one-on-one good faith conversation, not a debate, I am different. But I hope you would understand that when I'm fighting with somebody or when I'm debating somebody, that I reserve the right to get a little rowdy, to get loud, and yes, yell at people. Every person does this, including you. If you have an issue with my performance, I'm really sorry. I am literally like I am right now, online and off. I am a bundle of energy. People literally make memes about me being on crack because they literally cannot comprehend my level of energy. So
we can recognize then why I would want debate, like moderators within this discussion, right? Because with the way that you interacted with Demon Mama, with the way that you interacted with Sherry,
what about the way she interacted with me? What about the way that Demon Mama interacted with me?
Am I talking with Demon Mama right now, or am I talking with you?
So I would like you to make a statement.
In a conversation that I'm having with you right now,
but can you
based
please
on
say
your
it?
other interactions,
Are you willing to say that Demon Mama was absolutely unperformative in our debate? If that is the case, I will laugh at you endlessly for the rest of the fucking night. I will totally acceptable to hear all of your criticisms about my performativity, but I please ask you to throw me the single fucking bone. Tell me that Demon Mama was also performative. That's just a yes or no question, and then you can get back to all your criticisms of me. I just want us to understand that.
Yeah, dude. Like,
Hans, awesome. Keep going. Keep grilling me. Go ahead.
No. Like, the thing that happens here, and it happened right there, is that even when I'm coming at you in good faith and trying to understand what you're saying, there's still this level of performality that you do. Maybe that's your personality, and maybe we need more exchanges.
May I interject briefly? I've been listening for a while. Okay, so a few things. First of all, I do understand an element of Hans's frustration because, as public figures, we all are.
I do too.
We're all invested in our image and our appearance. That's not a dig at anyone. We all are. And the assertion that a person behaved performatively in a debate, when not contrasted with the information that perhaps the other person may have as well, can lend images, appearances, and impressions that might not be fair. So with regards to Hans's conversation with Demon Mama, which again I have not seen,
I recommend it's a banger.
Right. Which I have not seen. I'm sure, just because I know both of them, that this was probably a fairly mutually heated convo. That's a guess that I'm gonna make, that I'm comfortable making. Now, that doesn't absolve anyone of any bad behavior they engage in. It just means that the broader situation is complicated. If your imposition against Hans was that sometimes he goes over the top during panels and he commits to positions in ways that make discourse more difficult...
It's fair. I literally tear my shirt off during panels. It's one of my calling cards. I literally do that. I have a supply of white t-shirts that I tear off my chest for debates when I feel like I'm crushing it.
And I would never, ever ask you to stop doing that. And also,
nor would I.
Right, it's a thing that I have done. I would be incredibly hypocritical if I got, salty over that. But the specific criticism was with regards to the behavior of femmes. And I feel like we've moved away from that a little bit. It's a really difficult criticism to substantiate. There's not like, nobody can prove anyone right or wrong here. It's just, to clarify, your feeling, Joe Lewis, is that some of Hans's more pernicious debate tendencies are more prominent when he's talking to femmes. And your counter-argument, Hans, is that these tendencies you demonstrate, to whatever extent you do, and whatever they may be, are something that you do ubiquitously. They're not something that you direct specifically at femmes, right?
Absolutely. And I think every person who's ever hosted me on a panel can agree to that. Prime can say that right now. Prime, when it's just dudes being dudes in your after panel, how loud am I? How aggressive am I? How many times do you have to threaten to mute me and scream over me?
You're at 11. I have to.
Goddamn fucking right I am.
All the goddamn time. I wanted to mute you during this conversation, but I can't.
I'd like to fall through on that too, because I know what the counter argument to that is as well. I'm not trying to make arguments for anyone. I just feel like I know what the natural follow through is, and it's that's what anyone would say. That people who engage in biased behavior will always roll back and say, well, I do X with everyone, and that's any type of bias, right, with any degree of severity. So
very true.
The question that I have, like what I want to elucidate then, is, do you understand where Joe Lewis is coming from when he says he has these feelings about your behavior, specifically with regards to femmes, or does it feel like a completely unwarranted comment?
In regards to unwarranted, I can't tell Joe not to perceive me being as aggressive as I can potentially be with a woman as more than as like super aggressive towards women. I would say that I was snarky in the Demon Mama debate. I did not yell. I was not ridiculously aggressive. Someone timestamped the video, and they found conclusively that 22 of the 32 minutes of our debate, she was talking. So, with that being said, I think I was remarkably reserved during that conversation. Was I absolutely heated? And again, I've said this myself, mildly unhinged when I was talking to Cherry? Absolutely, and I've apologized for that. During my debate with Jack, I haven't apologized with Jack because that's been tonight, and as you all know, I've been a little bit busy. If Jack wants to have a chat, online or off, I'm happy to say, hey, sorry for getting heated, not sorry for defending my positions. I think that's a fair critique, and I'm willing to do that with anyone.
But if something is irrelevant said to me, is that when you participate in certain behavior and then somebody calls it out, and it sounds like you're choosing not to change anything that you're doing, I don't understand. Like, it seems like we're going to be in this cycle over and over where I might potentially see you doing the very thing that concerns me, and then we're back in the cycle over again. Like, I don't think you're seeing what I'm throwing here.
Here's my question. So sorry, Vosh, 1 second. Right. So then my question, right? Do you want me to specifically change my tone when I debate women? If that's true, then I feel like that's a yes or no. Should I change my tone and be less aggressive when I'm debating women?
I believe that you should watch those conversations with Sherry, Demon Mama,
I've seen them
and
all.
Riverboat Jack.
I haven't seen the Riverboat Jack one multiple times yet, but I've seen the Sherry one at least 4 times. I've seen multiple people go over it. I've seen at least 6 people go over the Demon Mama conversation.
Let Joe finish his point, please.
Go ahead, sorry.
I am asking you to watch those conversations between Riverboat Jack, Demon Mama, and Sherry with my criticism in mind. With the question, and I think the guiding question is, where is Joe's argument coming from? Is that something that you think you can do? Or also, am I stepping out of line with that request?
I feel like in some way is infantilizing the women who I have debated and have absolutely crushed me. And I feel in the future, I have had this conversation, not specifically about debating women, but again, one of my close friends online, and oftentimes debate like coach, or she goes over my debates and gives me feedback, is Stardust, female streamer extraordinaire. And she gave me excellent feedback on Cherry that I was too hot at the time to listen to, But after a period of a day of like cooling down, and we talked again, and I said that she was absolutely right. And the reason why I was so much more reserved during my conversation with Demon Mama is specifically because my female debate coach told me that I looked kind of unhinged. And multiple people, and Primes can attest this, and Primes chat, if they exist, like in like my space right now, can attest this. I sound unhinged sometimes during debates. I go hard. I scream. I shout. I am a crazy motherfucker. Like,
do you think that happened in the conversations with Demon Mama and Riverboat Jack?
Did it happen with Cherry? Absolutely.
I said Demon Mama and Riverboat Jack.
Riverboat Jack, I would say, I would hedge on a yes, that I yelled at her at some point, or at least I raised my voice considerably. The Demon Mama one, I was like on my literal best behavior, if a little cheeky. And and towards the end of the debate, I started memeing and I started creaming because I thought she was being explicitly bad faith. But I never like was so aggro with her. She was aggro with me. And I think that is explicit in our difference in terms of speaking time. She took up literally more than 2/3 of the speaking time.
Why does I interject here?
And you still didn't answer my question. Should I be less aggressive with women?
Yeah, okay. And hold on, because I think you might be interested in what I have to say here, Hans. So I don't want to distract from what Joe is trying to say specifically to Hans. This is a Joe and Hans thing, right? But on this very specific subject, I have a lot of experience with being a content creator on this platform, just like the rest of you. And that, especially in these lefty spaces, when, like, if you're familiar with my channel, you're familiar with that, like, I yell at people constantly, do it all the time, right? Yell at Hans, and it's legendary, me yelling at Hans. I'm yelling at Mr. Fanatic, right?
Oh, you're talking about the beating children debate, dude. That was a fucking nightmare. That was so good.
But understand that, like, I go at people, you know. But when you reflect that same behavior and you change nothing, it's not gendered or anything, right? When you use that same behavior with a woman, right? The people in chat, I'm talking about the audience here, the people in chat who are highly entertained when you're ripping the faces off Hans or you're ripping the faces off Mr. Fanatic, right? Those same people, when that behavior is reflected against a woman, right? They go, oh, that's cringe. That's a bad look. How could you? And it seems to me that this is reflective of what Hans said, that this is infantilizing those women, and that women are seen as fragile, and that they cannot take or exist in this space the same way men do. So this is something that I have. So I apologize because it seems like I'm interjecting my own shit in this. And maybe, Joe, you and I could have a separate conversation afterwards.
Sure.
But, like, I understand I deeply understand Hans's frustration with this.
So
Which is why I specifically asked if the rewatching was something that you felt was like at a turn. That's why I clarified with that question.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in if I may, because there are a few circles that we're running in. So, Joe, I have to ask directly. Not that a negative in this response takes away from your initial argument, but I have to know. Are there any specific elements of Hans's behavior which you feel point towards that bias you spoke of? Or is it just a general, the negative traits get turned up a few notches with femmes? Which, of course, makes it much more difficult to prove, but
Correct.
is also a thing that's been... Right, okay, gotcha. So
no, I'm saying correct in terms of like representation. But what I mean to say, sorry, I said correct in the wrong point to your point. My concern is that when and this is a broad concern that I have, right? When we're navigating in this space, there's a level of sensitivity that you have with the people who are watching. And this is something that I'm sensitive with when I'm talking to students. This is where this comes from. And this is why I'm clarifying this, is that optically, if I'm yelling at a male student about something that they're doing, that is different than me yelling at a female student about something they're doing. And I'm very sensitive to what that looks like, not only to other students, but also to parents and other individuals who might be watching. That's the root of my concern here. Do you see that concern, Hans?
Absolutely, but I would make a critical distinction.
Sure.
I think the way that society views young girls as opposed to adult women is even more infantilizing. And I would say that I am respecting women, especially in the debate sphere, by coming at them as hard at them as I do at men, and that treating them differently because of how it might be perceived, or how or just by assuming that they cannot take the same level of aggression, I think is absolutely infantilizing. And I would legitimately point to Demon Mama as an excellent example of a viciously aggressive debate lady who can take and give virtually any number of punches. I think she is an excellent example of how you should absolutely treat women the same as men when you're having an argument. And someone said, oh, maybe I'm disrespecting everybody. Maybe I do a little disrespecting. Maybe that's my style. But like, yeah, I feel like treating people differently would be different. If you want to say, like, oh, maybe this person is soft, so treat them differently. And that's like about, like, say, going into a conversation knowing what it is. Again, like, say, going into like our awesome conversation on like black activism and advocacy and like anti-colonialism, like that was base as fuck, right? But like that's a different conversation than me going into a debate with Demon Mama or Jack, knowing that I was accused of bad faith by Riverboat Jack. I asked her about it, and I said, "This was my words." She was in Sansol's chat. He was reviewing my debate. I saw Riverboat Jack in there. I said this: "Hey, Riverboat Jack, I heard you were talking shit and said that I was bad faith during my conversation with Demon Mama. I would love to have a conversation." And then Jack answered in the affirmative. She said, I absolutely thought you were bad faith, and I'm happy to have a conversation with you. And I think our conversation, for the most part, she relatively held her own. I think I won by virtue of being correct and having maybe better rhetorical skills. But I think she did, I would say Riverboat Jack, with the exception of the very end, when I got her in a lock and she wouldn't answer a question, then she bounced. I would say she did remarkably better in answering my questions and ducking and weaving and dodging than Demon Mama did during our debate. I would say the Riverboat Jack did better than Demon Mama from that conversation. But back to your former question, I understand how personally for you it looks bad because you are used specifically to dealing probably with younger human beings, and a lot of those younger human beings are girls. And I think we can all agree that in society we treat like how aggressive you can yell at a boy versus how aggressively you can yell at a girl differently, right? I remember being on the football team. Like in middle school, I remember rowing crew in high school. There was like a fucking like former colonel who was in Vietnam in a fucking speedboat with a bullhorn, like screaming at us for an hour and a half, like every fucking day. I don't
see a point for us to move forward from this portion, because we're just going to fundamentally disagree on how we should navigate with individuals on this platform.
Okay,
I think this part we should probably.
So wait, can I try to elucidate?
Answer the question. Like, should I? So you disagree that I should probably treat women more softly? That's your contention.
That's not my again. Like I said, we are not. I don't feel like you saw what I said, so I'd rather.
Is it just person by person? Because I'll admit,
I'd rather just table it and move forward.
Wait,
is that something that we can do here?
May I?
I guess.
Wait, Hans.
Sorry.
Hans.
One second, Bosch.
Wait, you 1 second. Hold on. Wait. Hold on. You'll like. Wait. Hold on. You'll like it. Okay. Hold on. Okay. We need to ground ourselves a little bit here. This is one of those discussions where unfortunately there's no empirical truth that we can drop down like a hammer. It's a general feeling. Now, as I understand this, okay, Joe concedes that there isn't some, like, golden bullet example of you being sexist or femphobic that can be wielded against you. So this is mostly a vibe check, is what this is. Now, that's going to be a very subjective process. Now,
I think I passed.
Well, regardless of whatever anyone believes about passing that test, I am sympathetic to Joe's arguments because I've often found in myself that the most pernicious biases are ones which express themselves almost ubiquitously. I know there are a lot of personality traits I have that aren't amazing, and I've noticed sometimes that whenever I'm acting on those more, it might be because there's some underlying bias. Now, that's me. To suggest that because I've had that happen, meaning that you've had it happen as well, would be projection, which is not what I'm trying to do here. I'm only saying that I'm fundamentally sympathetic to the logic of Joe's arguments, even if I don't know if it can be substantiated in this case specifically. I just want to lay my feelings on that because Prime earlier laid some of his feelings that felt appropriate. Now, I do need to ask Joe, because I do think it's a fairly explicit and important question that, if answered, might reveal a fundamental disagreement here. Do you believe that in the online debate space, people like Hanz and myself have an obligation to treat femmes, women, or other members of minority groups in a way which is more calm? Do you think there is a need for us to essentially put on kid gloves with those discussions, not necessarily because we're patronizing them, but for any myriad reasons you might imagine?
No, not at all. But there's a clarifying point there.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be as responsible as we can when navigating with any individuals of identifiable groups, because it's not. Sorry, what?
Hold on. Finish what you're saying, Joe, because I think this is important, and I think we should dig into what you're trying to say. Go ahead.
I'll use the All Black Everything panel as an example. Finding Black women for that panel has been close to impossible. One of the things, and Wiggle can attest to this too, when we were trying to find Black femmes, they navigate to watching how we handle other topics and other content. Because people, when they're getting invited to panels, go, oh, what's this about? Let me watch it. And time again, the biggest frustration that I had was that Black femmes on this platform openly said they did not like or respect the way that men were navigating topics about Black femmes. This has been a problem for over a year. It's the reason why Lyra was such like a breath of fresh air as somebody who saw and navigated around this space. With that being said, it was incredibly difficult. Excuse me. So when I navigate on the space, I think all content creators, should have some level of this when navigating with individuals. It's not about the conversations that you're currently having in the moment. For me, it's the next thing and the next thing. Like, you're building towards something or a future towards something. And sometimes I think, based on the interactions that the people we interact with and the interactions that we have, might prevent that potential expansion.
Okay, so Joe, my question
is that, do you see what I'm trying to say here?
I understand. I fundamentally disagree that as to how we should treat adults. If there's like a teenage creator on the platform, I could understand treating them softly or more softly.
It's not a matter.
I'm not sure if you're understanding what he's saying. I'm not sure if you're getting that.
Is it to be sensitive? Like, so this is, and I agree about the potential sensitivity of issues, which is why you'll notice in my recent panels, when I did my trans issues panel, Vosh was there, it was great. I didn't bring on a bunch of conservatives who didn't believe in trans people like existing. So I am very much in favor of not making people whose identity it is to exist fight or argue for their continued existence. I think that's hella fucking cringe.
So we recognize this.
Can I please finish?
Absolutely, finish.
All right, awesome. But here's the thing. Unless it's specifically related to that issue, I try and treat them like everybody else. if I'm dealing with a trans woman who's an anarchist, and we're talking about anarchism, it has nothing to do with her transness or her being a woman. It's about her anarchistic worldview versus my market socialist worldview. Then I think I am fair to go as hard as I want. In the same way that, like, I am very confident in my sexuality, right? I am a trans inclusive bisexual man, right? You could call me pan. I prefer bi. It's what I found first, right? I mostly prefer women. I've sucked a dick or two. I've jerked off some guys, right? Kissed some guys at some parties. Like, nothing serious. I prefer women, right? Like, I don't, and I get that because, aside from that, I am a heavily masculine, gigantic white guy. But I would prefer, in every issue, with the exception, I don't even like to say with the exception of that, like every issue aside from maybe like my experience as a bi guy, everything's on fucking limits at that point. My ideology, what I believe about the military, what I believe about public policy, what I believe about healthcare, all those things are off limits. But if you attack someone's identity, I understand that. But just because someone holds an identity, I don't think that's an excuse to go easy on them or like treat them differently during conversations where it does not relate. And I can tell you right now, my conversation with Demon Mama in no way brought up her being trans, her being a woman, or any of that. We briefly discussed.
May I quickly? Wait,
can I give it a try?
Sure.
And Joe, like, please tell me. Like, I'm going to say something. So tell me if I'm incorrect in stating what you're trying to get to. So I think what Joe is saying that the totality of our behavior, right, determines whether this is a inclusive or exclusive space. And that, so he brought up the example of all black everything, which is, you know, on my channel. And yes, it has been fucking impossible getting black women to come on that. But he's saying that it's not simply our specific interactions with women. I believe this is what Joe is saying. That's not our specific interactions with women, but like everything. So when a person looks into this space, right, they see behaviors happening, right? They see different sorts of interactions, the drama, the responses to that drama, and then they come away with certain conclusions, right? And what Joe wants us to do is that keeping that in mind, keeping that people will take these or draw these conclusions, that if we wanted to pull in and make this a non-anti-fem, a pro-fem space, right? Then we have to keep that in mind with all interactions. So your performativity that you're displaying with Demon Mama, with Cherry, with Riverboat Jack, right? That can damage that overall goal. Joe, was I correct in that?
Correct. Okay, that's a fair representation of my point.
Hanz, does that make sense? And you see how that was different from what you were saying?
I understand it. I would fundamentally disagree about the nature of what I want Twitch to be. I agree with Joe that we should probably have spaces, and I've tried to accomplish this on my panels, especially my more recent panels, to have inclusive environments of explicitly allies talking cordially about issues that are specific to those movements. And I agree with that, but I would also say that there is no, and again, like, I'm really sorry. I think Vosh and Prime can both attest to this, and I know Joe probably can too. There is no way that you can ensure that a debate where blood sports is a possibility, that it is going to be safe, because people's feelings get hurt, people get mad, people say horrible shit. Like, again, like during my conversation with Fnatic, I'm like, I feel like I feel bad afterwards, but I pushed a guy pretty hard. And I think I emotionally hurt him in some serious ways. And I didn't intend to do that. I was just trying to win the conversation, right? I was trying to push my points because I thought I was right. And I don't think we can make all of our spaces safe. I think we could try and have safer spaces overall, but I think we could have specifically safe spaces, right? In the case of maybe Joe's stream and Joe's channel is more explicitly a safer space. But I would say that my panel, and I know Prime's panel, and I know Prime's channel, and I would say Vosh as well, that our content is a little bit more dicey, a little more closer meme into the sun. And if we make it as inclusive as potentially, like I would say that Joe might be requesting, that we would have to fundamentally change how we do our channels. And again, I'm really sorry. I will be as nice as possible, but when it's time for blood sports, it's blood sport time. And if someone can't hit, so go ahead.
Right, I'd like to interject on this if I may, because I am personally both sidesing the hell out of this in my mind, which is very frustrating because I don't like. It's
a good question, right? It's a fun like thought experiment.
So anybody who's watched my streams knows my position on this. No matter what their identity, you should go as hard as you want on people that you disagree with. I'm not saying like call them racial slurs, but I'm just saying like if you disagree with a person, if their ideas are bad, you go hard no matter what their race or gender or whatever is. That's my position. I've always stood by it. I always will. I believe it. I believe it here too. Now, there's a broader point Joe's making, which is also one that I agree with. And it's that while that may be the case, you have to acknowledge that maybe you can treat everyone the same, but that doesn't mean the consequences are always going to be the same. I've noticed this myself. In spite of my beliefs, I cannot help but notice that the consequences of going full blood sports against, say, a black woman is very different than the consequences of going full blood sports against a white man. Now, whether or not that's fair isn't really a matter at issue here. None of this is fair, but it's something that we at least have to take into account. Now, that's a systemic critique. Interpersonally, it doesn't substantiate the claim that Hanz has engaged in biased behavior against femme people, because it's possible for a person to treat everyone equally and thus not be biased against femme people, but nonetheless contribute to a broader toxic culture by their behavior, even if it's the same, being treated differently when it's done against a minority group. The point that I'm getting at here is that I feel like this is a conundrum that we can't really solve in the context of Hanz's behavior specifically. It's something that has to be guided moment to moment, live, during streams and debates, a constant and ongoing process to make this space more safe and inclusive to people without complimenting our God-given right to dunk on, fools, which I hold to tremendously.
I know, Bosch, getting clipped and shipped about how all people of a certain race and gender talk the same.
Yeah.
There he is. Just fucking with you.
Hush up.
Nicki Minaj stands out in full force.
I try to be consistent with this. So with the point in the discussion which we're currently at, I feel like it's difficult to move forward when talking about behavior. So I want to ask questions of both of you if possible, and then we can see where we're going to go forward with this. Okay?
Sure.
So I'll open with you, Joe. So Joe, a lot has been said today, no doubt. Do you feel in the context of all of this that it is possible, because we can never prove this, that Hanz's behavior was motivated by zeal and enthusiasm, by a commitment to his beliefs, and maybe, at times, by communication difficulties, and wasn't motivated by any kind of bias towards femme people? Do you think it's possible that this could be just Hans Hansing in a non-problematic way?
Hansily up the stairs.
Right, but Joe?
I can recognize that, absolutely, yes.
Okay, and likewise, Hanz, do you understand how, from Joe's perspective, while again, this isn't necessarily the case, but perceptively, it's possible that given a string of aggressive debates with femme people, and there being, I'm only inferring this, maybe some broader communicative difficulties, at least some of those, that maybe a concern, a caution from Joe might have been, in some worlds, perhaps warranted. You know what I mean? Like maybe that it's an alarm bell that maybe there's a reason for it to have been wrong, even if it was just a false alarm. Does that make sense?
I completely can agree that I am hyperbolic. I am aggressive. And this does not affect me just online. It affects me offline at work, where most of the time I'm a professional, but I can be a firecracker. And yes, I am the person at Thanksgiving that makes my relatives cry. I am that guy. And I realize that is a personal thing for me. That's partially why I have my stream set to adult content. because I do not want to be like, traumatizing children, right? I do not think if you're 12 years old that you should be watching my content. I'm aggressive, I'm loud, I'm boisterous, I talk about sex sometimes, all that sort of stuff. I completely agree, and I try and do my best when I have a small mod team that I'm trying to expand, but especially like in the last, say, like 24 hours, I have had a massive explosion in the number of people in my chat. I went from a 50 viewer Andy to now, again, I am literally beating Vosh on Twitch, which is unheard of for me. So this is 10 times what I'm used to. And I see some of my mods in chat, my hardworking mods, like I see you Head for Hydra, I see you Revolt Rise, who's a friend of mine who I mod sometimes when I need assistance. But like a lot of my mods are not in chat as often as they should be. And normally, because I've been a smaller streamer up until now, I'm smaller than everyone else in this call. I'm smaller than Joe, I'm smaller than Prime, I'm smaller than Vosh. I have normally been able to handle my chat relatively successfully by myself, and then I rally the troops every time I host a panel, because my regular streams, again, are between 40 and 60 viewers, and my panel streams are normally somewhere in the triple digits, right? If it's a good night, it's like, it can be like upwards of 200. On a regular night, it's somewhere between, it's around like 150, right? And so I structure around that. And I know Joe linked a specific comment on Weeb Cosmic. If you're in chat, please do not make any jokes about hitting women. Please do not do that.
Hanz.
Yeah.
With respect.
So,
with respect. To reiterate, do you understand how, and I'm not saying that Joe is correct in this assumption. That's not the point that I'm making.
I can understand why he sees things the way he does. I absolutely
you can understand the perspective from which he approached this.
Absolutely. And in school, like I was in school, like in certain environments, I completely agree. I was that guy. I was the guy that made sure things were okay. I was like the guy at a college party that if something was going on and people were uncomfortable, I was the one that would ask the perpetrator to leave. Like, I was the one that would, like, get between people. Like, I am very much in favor of making spaces safer for people, but I'm saying, specifically in terms of the space that I'm cultivating, I am happy with my level of moderation. I slip up sometimes, like I feel everybody does, and I will hold the people who say those things accountable, and I will do my best to be better in the future, and I think that's literally all of us can do. I feel like this has happened as I've gotten bigger as a creator. I think we can all attest this. We cannot control our audience, but we can curate our audience. We can yell at people who are saying dumb things. There is a person in chat, I don't know if you're there, Hunga Master, who literally always says extremely horny stuff, and sometimes I feel like it's explicitly unwarranted and makes other people in chat uncomfortable. And so I tell them to shut the fuck up, and sometimes I time them out. And so yes, I do curate my chat, but again, I am not perfect, and I understand how that is potentially insufficient for the criticisms that Joe Lewis can levy at me, because I do not meet his standards. I say I meet them most of the time, but I do not meet them at all times, especially when I'm having fiery debates, when I am focused on fighting somebody and not on what my chat is saying.
Okay. And look, man, sorry.
Yeah, no, I only want to say that while I appreciate all of that, I'm not. My objective here is that.
But I disagree. I completely understand his whole position, and I can repeat it back. But I do disagree, and I will do my best to make him happy without compromising what I want to do with my platform.
No, that's fine. It's a point that can't be materially demonstrated. There's no way to demonstrably prove anything from any side. I think that, and I'm inserting my opinion here, I think that this entire situation has been morningly just packed to the brim with communication difficulties. The specifics of which I don't care to talk about, but this does feel like at least 90% of this conversation was, well, I know all of this could have been handled better from all of us.
As always.
Right. Well, so from all of us, I actually am not including myself and Prime, of course. We were woeful moderators dragged in here. Look, the point that I'm trying to get at is that if there's anything that I care about at the end of all this, as the sun sets, is being considerate with how we think about these things. Because it feels like often we stumbled across points that we might have agreed on, or at least disagreed on less, if we had approached them in ways other than that which we did. As long as we're careful with stuff like that, we might be able to avoid problems in the future. But if not, and if it turns out there are irreconcilable differences here, then that is, I suppose, as valid an outcome as any other. With all of that said, Joe and Hans, are there any other issues you would be interested in discussing with the benefit of moderation?
Yeah, I do, if it's really quick.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. I didn't.
So
I don't think I had anything else, but yeah, go ahead.
I recognize that you and I are going to do different things on this platform. I also recognize that in an effort to interact with people on Twitter, I go hard on the paint sometimes. It's just the thing I've been doing for years.
We all do, dude. I've seen it. Like, if you've seen my Twitter, like, dude, I think I've gone harder than just about anybody today. I'm calling people dumb fucks. I'm telling people to jump on streams.
That doesn't excuse, like, sort of, I don't know how to word this in a way that makes sense, is that you and I can have good conversations.
Dude, I still like you. You get that, right? Like this.
Yeah. Like that's the part I think at its core that frustrated me going into it, and why I was uncomfortable with like because again, like you were coming hard on the paint before.
Absolutely, I was ready. I'll be completely honest. I was ready to tear your head off. I was ready to tear everybody's head off.
Right, and that was the reason why I wanted moderation, because I know we can have good conversations. But I understand when people get hyped up, people get hyped up. So I want to recognize that, like, I'm glad we had this conversation. I want to recognize that I'm sorry for coming at you like that, especially considering that we can have good conversations about these things, especially even like I think our disagreements in the first conversation around incentives versus consequences. I think that was, for our sake, difficult but productive. But I can also recognize that a lot of this could have been easier with a reach out. I want to recognize that reaching out to you personally is probably going to be the better path moving forward. Is that do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, like I said the same thing during the initial Prime cat drama stuff, like between Destiny and Dylan. I said, guys, can we take this offline? It didn't happen, right? I completely understand how handling things offline can be way poggers as opposed to doing it in the open. I completely agree with that, and I would like to let you know, and I would like to let Jack know, and I would like to let everybody know, just because I fight you in a debate does not mean I dislike you. The same thing for Demon Mama. Demon Mama, I know I've been extremely aggro at you. I've made memes about losing marks of our friendship based on what you said to me during our debate. I do not dislike you. It takes a lot for me to say that I want nothing to do with a person and that I actively hate them. I have a very high baseline for dealing with people who piss me off. I feel like that's necessary in this space. Again, Destiny's entire community, the first time we debated, called me Morty. They made fun of my voice because I was screaming. Like, sure. They literally like made memes of me crying, like during the initial like Prime Kai stuff. If I didn't have thick skin, if I wasn't able to handle that sort of stuff, I wouldn't be on this platform. And I know what I can take, and I'm trying to let everybody know that if I go hard at you one day, the next day I can be just as nice to you. It's not because I'm a character. It's because I'm just, again, I go hard as fuck. Literally the day after, Fnatic and I screamed at each other for 2 hours, and I literally dropped 50 fucking bucks to mute his ass for an hour. I said, dude, fucking banger job in your tag team debate versus Lauren Southern. Like, I literally did that sort of stuff. I do that all the time. Like, I like arguing with people. I like fighting with people. I'm a naturally combative guy in the same way that I'm a naturally friendly guy. I'm literally what's the TV trope? Like, I'm a boisterous bruiser like style person. I like memeing, I like fighting, I like laughing, I like hanging out. I like all this sort of stuff. And
so I think moving forward then, like, I want to make this clear here that if I talk to you about something and bring something to your attention, like, I need to do a better job at communicating that to you in a way that is not hostile. Is that a fair point that you can recognize?
Yeah, I think I can,
because that's what I want to make, right? Like,
I got you. I think I can recognize that as long as things don't change, I can expect from you that whenever we talk, I assume it's going to be a conversation and not a debate. I am completely comfortable having that in my mind for when I'm discussing things with you, unless something dramatically changes.
Sure. Can we also recognize, like, in my quest, because I've run into this a lot, in my quest, in trying to be better in this eventualities, like us talking right now, if I come at you at Twitter, it sounds weird to say, but my frustration comes from a good place, I think, in my opinion. One of the problems I think that within this platform is that there's a lot of individuals that say, like, dumb shit for the sake of dumb shit and poking bears to poke bears. And I want to make it clear that I want to work on that conduct, because that doesn't lead to fruitful conversations. But if I do misstep, like, can you recognize that, like, that could potentially be a misstep and there might be something deeper going on there that feels like a backpedal? I don't want to make it seem like that.
Here's my promise. I will meme at you. I will not challenge you to a debate and call you a beta cuck and stuff like I did today. I promise not to do that. If you meme at me, I will meme back at you. I will try. I've been going hard, dude. I will try to resolve it in DMs as much as possible. I completely can vibe with that. Yeah. And then also, what someone said it. Am I a Jack Destiny? No. One of my dads is here, but I am the unholy love child of Vosh and Destiny. I'm like a were Vosh Destiny. I'm stronger than both. I got you. B. I'm gonna get you. I'm coming for that belt. I'm coming for that fucking belt. It's gonna be mine.
Yeah, because to be frank with you, to be real with you, like, look, man, like, sometimes I say things on Twitter that aren't defensible. Like, they're not defensible things, right? So I want to make sure that that's clear and that, like, I recognize that. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I got you. I completely vibe with that. And then,
okay.
Yeah.
So, have we covered all bases then?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right. Then, what I want to do. So this is separate. Joe. I know. I don't know what your schedule looks like, but, like, I would love it, because I haven't streamed yet because I've been doing this. If you could come on my stream, if I could start up my stream now, and we could have a conversation on this, on not specifically on Hanz's thing, but this general topic. If you have time. If you don't have time, that's okay.
Sure.
I'll do something else.
And one last thing, Joe.
Yeah.
I would very much appreciate if you could apologize to my editor and one of my producers, Eagle Eye. I know you had, like, some sort of, like, spat on Twitter. He's not a bad guy. I know he tried to promote my content to you to try and get you, like, to watch my YouTube video and stuff. And you guys, like, had a heated exchange. I want you to know he's good faith. He's somewhat frustrated, and he would appreciate an apology. It doesn't have to be tonight, but I would like that, if at all possible, because he was literally just trying to help me out.
Yeah, he and I can talk about that for sure.
Okay, cool.
So, Joe, would you like to have that conversation now? Is that a possibility? Like a 10-minute, with a 10-minute intro, to start up the stream. But yeah, is that a possibility?
You and I?
Yeah, you and I on my stream. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me give my girlfriend a call, because I'm kind of in the doghouse right now. But let me give her a brief goodnight jingle, and then I can pop in.
I'll put in a 20 minutes starter, right?
Sure.
And then we'll do it. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
You all are loved very much. Thank you for this unique opportunity. Everyone, take care, and have a good night.
Have a good night.
Thanks for helping out, B. Really appreciate it.